This is quickly becoming one of the most important seasons in the history of Nebraska football, and for good reason. Matt Rhule enters a make-it-or-break-it year 4 with an improved roster, an excellent coaching staff, but also some massive concerns. And as we get closer to the fall, you know what time it is. It is officially time to release the biggest video that I do every single year on the channel, my official, comprehensive Nebraska 2026 deep dive with advanced graphics, statistics, film, surprises, predictions, and so much more. We're going to go over every single Husker player and every single Husker coach on this team, my evaluation and the truth behind the matter, my predictions for this season, my hot takes, revealing our true expectations, everything you need to know about Nebraska football 2026, and so much more. So really quick, this video is loaded from start to finish with information. I put so much time in this video, hours upon hours, so it takes 2 seconds. It would make my day. If you support what I'm doing here on the channel, please hit that like button. And also, if you love Nebraska football and you're not subscribed, you're in luck. That was the perfect time to subscribe. It's almost the season, and I got you covered, staying informed with the Huskers every single day, whether it's breaking news, recruiting, practice bits, intel, staying informed with Nebraska. Join the family, over 18,000 strong. Hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much. But without further ado, we have a lot to talk about. Let's get into it with my official Nebraska 2026 deep dive. We first begin with Nebraska's coaching staff entering the 2026 season, all the changes that have been made. Now, of course, we know that Matt Rhule is entering his 4th year at Nebraska, and to an outsider's perspective, you think the coaching staff has been the same for the most part. Same offensive coordinator, same defensive coordinator, same positional coaching staff, and if anything, it's been the exact opposite. We have never seen this much turnover from a Nebraska head coach in his first 4 years ever, where Matt Rhule now has 8 different coordinators in just 4 years. His second different offensive coordinator, third different defensive coordinator, and third different special teams coach. Now, of course, looking at the changes that Nebraska has made, they fired John Butler after just 1 year as Nebraska's defensive coordinator, hired him to replace Tony White, who went to Florida State, and that was a massive mistake by Nebraska. John Butler has only been defensive coordinator 1 time in his past. That was a decade ago at Penn State. He was not ready. He was not prepared. And while Nebraska's secondary thrived, which you'd expect with his background, the defensive line was one of the worst in the history of the program. Nebraska could not stop the run. They could not game plan. They could not adjust mid-game, particularly when they played top 25 opponents. And John Butler also had a lot of disagreements with Matt Rhule at the end of the season, which led to his firing. Now, of course, it wasn't just him. Nebraska fired longtime offensive line coach Donovan Rhule, who is the only coach that Matt Rhule retained from the Scott Frost era, really only because they wanted to recruit his 5-star quarterback, nephew, who did not work out, but that's story for another day. Of course, we know that Nebraska fired first-year defensive line coach Terry Brain, who was responsible for the worst defensive line in the history of the program. We hired him from the Kansas City Chiefs. He just was not ready for the spotlight, right? He was assistant defensive line coach all his career. He was not ready to be a main defensive line coach in the Big Ten. And then the other coach who Nebraska lost this offseason was 1-year special teams coordinator Mike Eckler, who came in from Tennessee, and he turned around Nebraska special teams from one of the worst in America to one of the best overnight. Of course, you know what happened there. He wanted to help out with the defensive coaching staff. Matt Rhule said, you know what, while we're going to give you an extension, while we want to pay you more money, we only want you to be our special teams coordinator. And Mike Eckler, he never cared about the money. He wanted to help out with the defense along with special teams. Matt Rhule said no. He went over to USC with the exact same role, along with to be their linebackers coach. So that's who Nebraska lost. And let's look at who Nebraska gained. They hired Rob Orch, brand new defensive coordinator coming in from San Diego State. Had a past at Bemidji State, had a past at Idaho. He's one of the bigger up-and-coming defensive coordinators in America. Brand new offensive line coach Jeep Wade coming in from Georgia Tech, who's been all over the country as well. He was phenomenal with the Yellow Jackets, just produced a first-round draft pick last year. They were top 10 almost every single statistic on the offensive line. We bring in defensive line coach Corey Brown, who's an old-school builder from Miami, Ohio. Not a sexy hire by any means, but somebody where every single year with Corey Brown, his defensive lines have been physical, big, nasty, and they stop the run, particularly in the Midwest. And then, of course, Nebraska replaced Mike Eckler at the special team spot with former Nebraska kicker legend Brett Maher, who's only been a coach for 2 years now, entering his 3rd year, limited experience, but Nebraska believes they can replicate at least a little bit of what Mike Eckler did. So with that being said, the only main loss for Nebraska was Mike Eckler. You really can't replace Mike Eckler. He's one of the best special teams coordinators in America, but you get rid of John Butler, who, let's just call it what it is, was incredibly incompetent. He should have never been employed by Nebraska to begin with. You get rid of Don Varela, who Nebraska fans, they were calling for him after year one of his career with the Huskers, and you get rid of Terry Brain, who was one of the most incompetent coaches in the history of the program. You replace 3 duds with 3 studs, 3 proven guys who are young, who are energetic, who are great recruiters, and who are willing to do whatever it takes to find success for Nebraska. For the most part, this Husker coaching staff has been upgraded. Now let's get into each coach one by one, starting off with Nebraska's head man, Mr. Matt Rhule, entering his 4th year at Nebraska, earning him a rating of a C. He has a record of 19-19 at Nebraska, which is perfectly a C. That's right in the middle. However, what's a little bit more interesting is his Big Ten record at Nebraska. Only 10 wins to 17 losses with the Huskers. A lot of those losses being to teams on Nebraska's playing level, where again, I think there's a misconception at times the Huskers are always losing top 25 opponents. They are, but Nebraska has had trouble beating the Iowas of the world, the Wisconsins of the world, the Illinois of the world, and that's why, for the most part, Nebraska, the teams that we've beaten have been the below average Big Ten squads, and that's why the 10 wins are what they are. Now, of course, Nebraska returns an offense last year that was 69th in America, a defense that was 67th in America, and of course, a point differential of just 0.1, which was 66th in the country. So middle of the pack in pretty much every single statistic. That's not good enough in year 3 of Matt Rhule. I want to remind you that last year for Nebraska, year 3 was supposed to be the big breakout year. That was supposed to be the year when Nebraska made the cultural playoffs. The coaching staff was talking about it. Oh, we're going to be in the mix to win 9-10 games. The talent was there. 5-star quarterback, Heisman-worthy running back. In Nebraska, while it wasn't a flop season, they didn't miss a bowl game. 7-6 was definitely not the year people expected, and certainly the coaching staff did not expect that at all. Of course, it's not just Matt Rhule. You have Dana Holgorsen going into his 2nd true season for Nebraska as an offensive coordinator. Of course, was a former head coach at West Virginia and Houston, and defensive coordinator Rob Orch, who we'll get to in a second. But let's get into Matt Rhule more specifically and what he's done at Nebraska, not only here, but throughout his history. Of course, we know that at Nebraska, took over the Huskers in 2023, went 5-7, a little bit of a disappointing season. Definitely had one of the easier schedules in the Big Ten, but with everything that happened at the quarterback position, Jeff Sims being a bust, Heinrich Haarberg, it felt like not really a step in the right direction for Nebraska, but it didn't feel like it was a regression by any means. People understood that Matt Rhule is going to take time with him. He's an old school builder. So after year 1, it was what it was. It was disappointing, but it wasn't any reason to freak out. Year 2 of Matt Rhule, that's where people started to talk, okay, maybe this could be the year with true freshman 5-star Dylan Rowell, with Jamal Banks coming in, with Dante Dowdell coming in, all these transfers. Maybe this is the year Nebraska could make a run at things. And they went 7-6, 6-6 in the regular season, winning against Boston College in the Pinstripe Bowl. Definitely a step in the right direction. And for the most part, that felt like a great season for the Huskers. The first time they made a bowl game in a very, very long time, in the decade of the 2020s, still a 3-6 Big Ten record. Of course, the end of the season very poorly, losing 5 of their last 6 games. But at the end of the day, it was a great step in the right direction, and it was setting up for a massive year 3 with all the expectation in the world, all this young talent that's finally ready to break out. And Nebraska, who was coming in with one of the easiest schedules in the Big Ten, went 7-6 again. Now they went 7-5 in the regular season, losing in the bowl game to Utah in the Las Vegas Bowl. Of course, they won one more Big Ten game in regulation. They still had a losing record. They went 4-5, but a very similar theme for Matt Rhule. When it got to November, when it got to the end of the season, they played the Penn States, the Iowas, and the Utahs of the world. Not only did they lose, they lost bad, which put a bad taste in the Husker fans' mouths, to the point where this has definitely been a different offseason. People are not, sipping all the Kool-Aid like they normally do. People are not talking recklessly about Nebraska making the College 12 playoffs because it was that disappointing of an end of the season. If Nebraska somehow did, in fact, beat Penn State, that was a very winnable game, right, with an interim head coach, a Penn State team that was bloody and bruised. If they beat Penn State, if they certainly beat Iowa, and you end the season, let's say 9-4, that would have been a whole different offseason entering this year. That the hype would have been real, but it's the fact that they lost to Penn State in that fashion, lost to Iowa in that fashion. I mean, it was the biggest Iowa blowout loss we've seen in years. That's what made people say, you know what, how much progress have we really made with the big breakout year? That never really turned out to be that way. Also, of course, looking at Matt Rhule's history, not bad, right? Temple had a little bit of a winning record at 28-23. Baylor did, in fact, have a losing record, but, he inherited a terrible situation, only won 1 game his first year at the end there. He really got Baylor rolling. Of course, note the Panthers was one of the worst coaches in the NFL the past 10 years, and at Nebraska, a solid 19-19, perfectly 500. But really, the statistics that jump out to me in regards to Matt Rhule, there's 3. Career college football record, 66-62. Now, we understand Matt Rhule to be a rebuilder, that he's never really been in a college football program long enough to compete for national championships. But it's interesting when you look at Matt Rhule's contract, right? You look at his buyout, which is $71 million, that this man is getting paid as much as anybody in America, and yet he only has 4 more wins than he does losses in his entire career. That's interesting. Then you look at the Power 4 rank record his entire career, not just at Temple, right, but at Baylor, at Nebraska's Power 4 ranked record. And actually, this isn't even counting Temple. This is just counting Baylor and Nebraska. He has went 0-19. Matt Rhule has won 2 ranked games, both of which were against, non-Power 4 teams. But when you look at the Power 4 teams he has played at Baylor and Nebraska, he's 0-19. And then you look at Nebraska in the record he has when the Huskers are an underdog, when the record that Nebraska has when they're not favored to win the game. He has went 2-15. The only games Nebraska has won when they're the underdogs was Illinois in his first season on the road Friday night, and last season against UCLA also on the road. And TJ Lateef was Nebraska's starting quarterback. So those statistics are definitely eye-opening. But now let's get to the recruiting in the transfer portal rankings. What's the talent looking like for the Huskers? What's the talent that they're bringing in? It's not bad. Where, of course, look at the recruiting rankings here for Matt Rhule in his first season, top 25 class. His second one, it was a top 20 class. His third, it was another top 25 class. Now, of course, the class 2026, the class right now that are true freshmen, not awesome, right? It was barely cracked top 100 in America. Nebraska really only landed 10 prospects because of all the young talent. But what I do appreciate about that recruiting class for Nebraska, they did land talent. They landed hidden gems. We're about to talk about in this video. A couple 5-stars, a couple 4-stars. So it wasn't maybe as bad of a recruiting class as what people say it is. It was disappointing at the time. The Huskers should have landed more talent, on the defensive line, offensive line, more 4-stars they wanted, but they missed out on. But for the most part, recruiting's been solid at Nebraska. Has it been great? No. Okay, has it been elite? No. Again, the 2027 class, which is coming next year, we do expect to be elite. But the guys who are here right now, a lot of 4-stars, just not a whole lot of 5-stars compared to the other squads in the Big Ten, the Ohio States, the Indianas, right, the Oregons of the world. Look at the transfer portal rankings, which are a little more relevant, particularly for this season. Also not bad. Usually around top 40 in America. Of course, the reason why 2025 was so hyped up is because Nebraska brought in a top 15 transfer portal class in the country, multiple 4-star, 5-stars. Didn't really work out as we've previously mentioned. Now, coming in this year, they have the 31st transfer portal class in America. Didn't get a whole lot of quantity, but certainly got quality Nebraska believes in, particularly in the trenches on defense. A lot of defensive talent there. So again, talent's not bad for Nebraska. It's not like things have fell off a cliff. They're bringing in 4-stars, bringing in 5-stars, bringing in guys, but really the talent's never been the problem for Nebraska. It's always been the development, and it's been the coaching staff executing on game days. That brings us to the green and the red flags around Matt Rhule entering his 4th year with Nebraska. Now, the green flags are very evident, where, again, Nebraska, when Matt Rhule inherited this program, the bar was on the floor. The bar was incredibly low. Nebraska had not made a bowl game since 2016. They really hadn't even been competitive since 2016 with Mike Riley. So all Nebraska fans wanted when we hired Matt Rhule, at least within the first couple seasons, let's make a bowl game. Let's show progress. And he's done that, right? 2 bowl appearances in the last 2 years. I mean, they should have made a bowl appearance in his first season, but it is what it is, right? Again, going to the Pinstripe Bowl in 2024, that was progress. Going to a bowl game in 2025, while 7 wins wasn't progress, going to a bowl game twice in 2 years, certainly that's something we would have died for just a couple years ago. So that's a green flag for Matt Rhule. When you look at the on-field statistics from last season, it wasn't all bad, right? They had a top 5 secondary in America, thanks to John Butler, thanks to Addison Williams. Of course, John Butler's out of the mix now, but we expect that to be very similar this season. Nebraska last year, for the past 10 years, we've had a problem with penalties, right? Pre-snap penalties, holdings, right? Stupid penalties like roughing the passer, right? Unnecessary roughness, all these things. And last year, Nebraska, they were top 20 in America, least penalties per game. So you can say a lot of things about Matt Rhule. You can't say that his team is not disciplined. We were also top 15 in least turnovers per game. So all statistics you love to see in Nebraska's favor. Now, Matt Rhule at Nebraska is something that is a little bit of a green flag and a red flag. We believe that he is a phenomenal developer. However, at Nebraska in 3 years, he only has 3 NFL draft picks. He is averaging 1 NFL draft pick per year. Now, for context, Scott Frost, who was at Nebraska for 5 years, averaged 2 NFL draft picks for a year. So, yes, is Matt Rhule churning out a whole lot of NFL talent? Absolutely, he's not. However, when you look deeper into that, he is still developing at a high level, where the 3 NFL draft picks he did have, all of which were considered bust at one point in time. Ty Robinson was a 4-star out of Arizona who ended up being a very high, very high NFL draft pick to the Philadelphia Eagles. He was considered a bust until Matt Rhule took over. Thomas Fidone, who was a 7th round draft pick by the New York Giants, was considered a bust until Matt Rhule developed him. And then most recently, Emmett Johnson was not even on the football field until, of course, Dana Holgorsen got here, developed him along with EJ Barthel, turned out to be a Heisman candidate. So yes, you want to improve the NFL draft picks, but it's not the worst thing in the world. The development is still a lot better than what we've had in the past. Again, top 20, what you can say about Matt Rhule, he's done a good job when it comes to recruiting. You look at the 2027 recruiting class, which is coming next year, it's top 20, if not top 15 in America. And also, there's been a narrative at Nebraska for years that we just can't win one-score games, that if it's a one-score game in the fourth quarter, the Huskers won't win that one. That changed last season. We went 4-2 in one-score games. Now, don't get me wrong. There were a couple games there that should not have been one score. UCLA should not have been one score. Northwestern should not have been one score. We should have blew out those teams, but at least Nebraska won the one-score games which we were in for the majority of them. The only ones we lost were, of course, against USC because Dylan Riley got injured, and also won at the beginning of the season versus Michigan. So those are the green flags for Matt Rhule. But here are the red flags entering year 4. There are 9 in particular. Matt Rhule at Nebraska still has 0 ranked wins. And I talk about this all the time. I think there's a misconception that winning ranked games is so hard. Like, it's so hard to win a ranked game. It's impossible to beat a top 20 opponent. It's really not. Now, again, it's hard to beat a top 10 opponent, particularly on the road, especially in the Big Ten. But if you're playing the 22nd best team in America, the 24th best team in America at your place, at your house, you should win that ball game. And not only has Matt Rhule never won a ranked game in Nebraska, he's never won a Power 4 ranked game in his entire career. And that's why, on this channel, we call him Matthew from time to time. We call him Matthew because I'm a big believer that at this point in your career, you got to earn the respect, right? I gave you respect when you got here, but if you are getting paid as much money as you are and you can't win a single ranked game, like, come on. At some point in time, you have to earn your name back, and that's why we call him Matthew from time to time. Second thing is that at Nebraska, Matt Rhule has never won a game in which Nebraska was down at halftime. The Huskers can be down 1 point at halftime. They can be down 10 points at halftime. Nebraska has never won a game in which they were down at halftime ever. And that's what's frustrating because last year for the Huskers, we had the worst third quarter offense, worst third quarter defense in America. Because when we got out of halftime, we made Joe adjustments and the teams would hit us in the mouth over and over again, and we didn't know what to do about it. Nebraska's never won a game which they were down at halftime. Matt Rhule at Nebraska is 2-10 November. The best teams, they get better season progresses. Nebraska gets worse as the season goes on. When it starts to get more physical, it gets cold outside, when Nebraska gets bloody and bruised, that's when you really start to lean in on your coaching and your depth. Nebraska falls short, when it matters the most in November to end the season. Against Big Ten opponents, Matt Rhule has only won 2 games against teams that ended their season over 500. That, of course, being Northwestern, and I also believe Illinois. Those were the 2 teams Nebraska has beat in Matt Rhule's entire career that ended the season 500 or more. The other 8 wins that Matt Rhule has in conference were against teams who are at the complete bottom of the barrel, who won 3 or 4 games. So Matt Rhule's really only beat 2 quality opponents in the Big Ten. Conference wins. I mean, this is a huge statistic, right? Where conference wins in his first 3 years. Scott Frost's first 3 years was a complete failure. Only had 9 conference victories. Also with a cutoff COVID year in 2020, he might have had more without that COVID year. Scott Frost only 9 conference wins. Matt Rhule with 10 conference wins. So he only has 1 more than Scott Frost. Iowa, that was, I think, a huge game for the Huskers looking back on it. Matt Rhule, Nebraska, we lost to Iowa by the most we've seen since 2017, since Mike Riley. Scott Frost, I'll give him a little bit of credit. He never lost to Iowa by more than a touchdown. We lost to Iowa by over 20 points, and it wasn't even close in the second half. Got absolutely obliterated. Ran out of our own stadium. That was disappointing, right? It is disappointing when there's really 0 continuity, right? Again, 8 different coordinators. Of course, worst defensive line in the history of the program coming in from last year, and then a buyout that is $71 million as it stands right now, where, again, we know Matt Rhule's pretty much safe, and hopefully this is a breakout year, and we're about to talk about why there's reasons this could be a breakout year, but it's definitely something that should be mentioned. All in all, that is Matt Rhule entering this season for him. Again, he has a lot to prove. Now, I believe that Matt Rhule is a different man. I believe that, he's learned a lot. He swallowed his pride, but I continue to bring this up around him. This season comes down to Matt Rhule more than anybody else, right? We could talk about talent, and we're about to talk about talent. The talent matters a lot. It does. And again, you need Jimmys and Joes more than anything else, but you also need a coach who can adjust mid-game, who can game plan at a high level, who you feel confident against the best. And we're hoping we can get that from Matt Rhule. And I'm also a big believer of this before we get to Dana and Rob Orich. I'm a big believer that you find out who people truly are when their backs are against the wall. That when there's pressures will either burst pipe burst pipes or they will create diamonds. And some coaches, right, when their back's against the wall, they make diamonds, right? They shine. And other coaches, when their back's against the wall, they show you who they truly are, and they get fired, and they break. We'll see who Matt Rhule is, because there's a lot of pressure this season. While maybe his job's on the line, there's a lot of pressure from the fan base. This is the year that he finally breaks out. As for our coordinators, of course, offensive coordinator Dana Holgorsen, defensive coordinator Rob Orch. First to begin with Dana Holgorsen, right? There's a lot of pros around him. Of course, earning himself a grade of a B-, a little bit different than last year where we gave him a grade of an A-. I mean, he is a huge wild card for Nebraska. You see that wild card emblem. He's somebody with as much experience as any offensive coordinator in America. With him being the head coach at both Houston and West Virginia, was at one point, one of the biggest offensive names of the sport, super creative, super cutting edge, one of the hottest names in the market. But at Nebraska, let's just call it what it is. It's been, moderate success at best, where he came in the middle of the season in 2024, the final 3 games. He took over after Marcus Satterfield, and it was automatically an instant upgrade. Had a good performance against USC on the road, really good performance at Wisconsin, clinched bowl eligibility, decent performance in the bowl game versus Boston College. And you're saying to yourself, oh my goodness, with a full offseason under his belt, I can't wait to see how much better it is in 2025. And the offense in 2025 actually regressed from the 4 games we saw Dana Holgorsen in year 4. Now, I want to make it, abundantly clear at the beginning, of this Dana Holgorsen discussion. It's never the scheme that's his issue. I think people have a misconception. Oh, it's his scheme. His scheme's all messed up, right? He's not running his traditional air raid offense, right? We should let him do whatever he wants. It's not really the scheme. Dana Holgorsen can have successful in a pro style multiple offense like what you're going to see this year, right? It's mostly the play calling when it comes to Dana, where again he's trying to do too much, right? Last year you'd see we had the best running back in America with Emmett Johnson, and we neglect him right over the course of a ball game. We'd go away from him because Dana Holgorsen's bread and butter is airing out the football. Again, at times there is a talent efficiency, and that's not really his fault. But, at times with Dana, again, you look at the efficiency, right? Worst 4th down offense in the Big Ten, right? One of the worst red zone touchdown scoring offenses in the Big Ten. Whenever the field got shrunken or was a big money down, for whatever reason, we didn't have success. At times with Dana, I believe he's trying to do too much. At times you just need to be simple, right? Go to what works, your bread and butter, right? And execute and get going with another first down. So, with Dana, I mean, it really just comes down to how much can he improve his play calling and how many adjustments can we make at halftime mid-game, because that's what really matters the most. I'm not worried about Dana Holgorsen from a knowledge standpoint. I'm of the belief that Dana Holgorsen, pound for pound, is one of the smartest offensive minds in the game. That hasn't changed, right? But I am worried about his play calling. I am worried about, honestly, if he still has the it factor in him. Meaning, what made Dana Holgorsen special for years is that he was so cutting edge, he was so creative, he was always finding ways to burn defenses. And now in Dana Holgorsen's old age, right, with him being kind of a veteran coach, he told you himself earlier this offseason, I haven't really learned anything. Like, he was asked, hey, what'd you learn from 2024? He said, I've seen everything. Didn't really learn everything. The best coaches are always learning. So with Dana, I still give him a grade of B-. He's one of the better offense coordinators in the Big Ten still. But, and again, I'm not worried about him when it comes to developing the receivers, which, again, that's his bread and butter. I'm not worried about him with the pass attack, the scheme. I'm just worried about our in-game adjustments, play calling. If he can figure those things out, he could once again prove to be one of the best offense coordinators in America. And then as for our defensive coordinator, Rob Orch, coming in from San Diego State. Now, listen, Rob Orch was not a super big household name when we hired him, but looking back on that was one of the best hires Nebraska can make. Where I've said this for years, Matt Rhule at times, and this is not just Matt Rhule, but Scott Frost, Mike Riley, we've always tried to find the guys with the most experience in the world, the guys who are killing the Big Ten for years, killing the SEC for years, and that's awesome. But what Nebraska needs, and honestly what Nick Saban always did, you hire the up-and-comers. You find the guys who maybe aren't proven necessarily, but they're going to be future head coaches. They're going to be guys who are going to run the sport in 10 years, because not only is that going to make Matt Rhule better as a coach by having a young up-and-comer, right, who can challenge him ideas, but it's nice to have somebody who's hungry. You want somebody who's hungry, where Dana Holgorsen, you could argue, he's at the end of his career, he's probably not going to be head coach ever again. He's not as hungry as he used to be. Rob Orch, he's hungry, right, because he understands if he is a big breaking year for Nebraska, some teams could be calling for him to take over, right? And that's exactly what he wants. And you want that from your defensive coordinator. You want him to leave this place better than he found it, and then another guy in his shoes who's also creative. So with Rob Orch, I gave him a grade of a B, because San Diego State, listen, one of the best defenses in America last year. We have transitioned this defense toward a 4-2-5, which fits the Big Ten more so than our past scheme, the 3-3-5. Rob Orch, a couple things you need to know about him. He develops great linebackers. Everywhere he's went, you've seen elite linebacker play, an elite pass rush, right? Particularly inside backers, outside backers, and, sneakily behind the scenes, he is our co-linebackers coach alongside Rob Dvorak. Every single place he's been, whether it's San Diego State or South Dakota or Idaho or Bemidji State, his defenses have been able to stop the run at a very, very high level. He's young. He's energetic. The only thing I'd say around Rob Orch, yes, he does lack experience. And although he's had success everywhere he's went, the Big Ten is a little bit of a different challenge. When you play Ohio State, when you play Indiana, when not only you play the talent, but you play the coaches, you play the head coaches, the coordinators. Like these guys are crafty. They are so cutting edge, right? You think you're cutting edge, you got to see what they're doing over there at Indiana. So it is a little bit of a gamble, no question about with this lack of experience, but it's for the better. I do believe this was a home run hire looking back on it for Nebraska, something the Husker fans will be excited for years to come. Now, let's get into the rest of Nebraska's coaching staff because we have what we like to believe a loaded positional coaching staff all the way down offense, defense, special teams. Now, of course, 5 coaches left after last season. We hired 6 brand new coaches. Let's just go down the line here. Of course, we have quarterbacks coach in his 3rd year, Glenn Thomas, who's the former offense coordinator under Matt Rhule. He's our co-offense coordinator. He earns a grade of a C+, and he's not bad, right? But I say this around Glenn Thomas. His main responsibility for me is developing the quarterback position. We've seen some development from time to time with TJ Lateef. With Dylan Riley, there was not a whole lot of development done by Glenn Thomas. So that's why jury's still a little bit out on him, but done a great job when it comes to recruiting and also in-game tactics. EJ Barthel, he earns a very solid grade with what he did last year with Emmett Johnson. Now, again, it remains to be seen what he does with the rest of this running back room, which has a lot of concerns. But listen, if you develop a Heisman-worthy running back, yeah, you're looked very fondly in the eyes of the public. Receivers coach Da'Keel Shorts has been a little bit of a disappointment entering his 2nd year. Hasn't really accrued to the level we thought he was going to. Hasn't really developed to the level we thought to. I mean, this receiver room is stacked with talent, but it's not like he developed those guys. He just brought those guys in, right? Because we paid him in the portal. But and David Da'Keel Shorts has a huge opportunity in his hands. Marcus Satterfield, tight ends coach, former Nebraska offense coordinator. Yeah, I mean, simply put, I believe one of the worst coaches we have. I think the majority of Husker fans believe that just because what he did as our offense coordinator, one of the worst you'll ever see. That's just the end of the day with Marcus Satterfield. He's Matt Rhule's friend. He is employed. You have G. Boyd as your offensive line coach, earns a grade of an A. He does have, he lacks a little bit of Power 4 experience, which is why he's only an A, not an A+. We have to see it on the field. But listen, the Georgia Tech experience is great. What he did, of course, from a recruiting standpoint, it's been great. The pass pro development's been great. We expect this offensive line to be absolutely awesome this year. Hired Corey Brown from Miami, Ohio. Again, the old school builder, right? Hopefully we think it's going to take time with him. Hopefully it doesn't take time, right? We need this defensive line to break out now, but Corey Brown's somebody who, has been doing a lot of great work this summer and believe his track record's as good as anybody in the staff, right? You have Roy Manning, who's also been all over all of power football. Has been listed by multiple publications to be, a top 10 edge rushers coach in America. He had experience at Michigan, at USC, at Oklahoma, right? Of course, followed Rob Orich from San Diego State to Nebraska. So we're hoping Roy Manning can work with an edge rush room that lacks experience, lacks statistics, but definitely has talent. You look at the linebacker position, Rob Dvorak sneakily done a really good job for Nebraska. He is one of the few coaches who's been here all 4 years with Matt Rhule. One of the very few. And he's done a sneaky good job again with Vinton Shavers, right? Again, last year, there were some guys who didn't break out, but listen, I think what he did with John Bulk a couple years ago was absolutely phenomenal. What he did with Buda Wright was phenomenal. So Rob Dvorak, one of the better coaches on our staff. Ass Williams, I do believe, is the best positional coach on our staff. Nebraska top 5 secondary last year with the talent deficiency. We had a liability at free safety and a liability at nickel for the majority of the year, and that secondary was absolutely prepared every single weekend against the USCs of the world, against the Michigans of the world, even played well in the bowl game at times. So Ass Williams earns a grade of an A+. Yeah, Phil Snow, assistant head coach, former defensive coordinator at Baylor with Matt Rhule. Listen, he just kind of helps out from a game playing standpoint, kind of another eye in practice. He's not terrible, but the end of the day, it's, he's getting paid $400,000 more than some of the coaches on this. Is that really justified? Remains to be seen. Brett Maher, first year with Nebraska. Now, listen, he has some huge shoes to fill. Huge, no question about it. But what we've heard at Nebraska, he's already been coaching for us past 2 years, helping out the kickers. He's done a great job in that department. Definitely not A like Mike Eckler, but I don't believe he's going to be a flop, maybe like what some people say. And then you have Pat Stewart, our general manager, in his 2nd year with Nebraska. Done a lot of good, done some bad. I believe not really aggressive enough in the portal. He's treating this kind of like the NFL. This isn't really the NFL, right? It's a whole different league. But he's learning as he goes on, right? Everybody's gonna make mistakes. He's not terrible. He's not abysmal. Again, wish we would have got more talent in the portal. Absolutely. Wish we had a better recruiting class in class 2026. Absolutely, right? But overall, Pat Stewart, he still has some time to prove himself. Now it's time to get into the roster, first beginning with Nebraska's quarterback position. Now, of course, the Huskers lose former 5-star quarterback, savior of the program, Golden Boy, Husker legacy. His dad's name is on the stadium, that, of course, being Dylan Rhule. The Dylan Ryle experience was tumultuous to say the least. With all the expectations in the world coming out of Buford, Georgia, someone with a very strong arm, Nebraska was recruiting him since he was a freshman in high school, since he showed up to a Scott Frost Friday Night Lights camp, and the Husker fans were so gravitated toward him. The whole recruiting process was interesting, right? Initially committed to Ohio State, then decommitted, committed to Georgia, decommitted, and then committed to Nebraska just days away from signing day. Now, I'm not going to sit here and act like the whole Dylan Ryle situation was just a complete and utter failure, like maybe what some people are saying. Again, 2024, his first year with Nebraska wasn't bad, right? You saw a lot of flashes. He was one of the better quarterbacks in the Big Ten. He could have been a lot better, but still, it wasn't like he was a liability every single day, right? It wasn't like he was awful, unplayable. He was somebody who showed promise, who showed that upside that you've been dreaming of. And then came his sophomore season in 2025 in Nebraska with all the expectations. Some people were putting him on Heisman list, top 5 quarterback in the conference. And also, again, it wasn't like Dylan Ryle was terrible, but he just didn't develop. He didn't get any better, right? He developed some bad tendencies when it came to his pocket presence, his IQ, his progressions, right? The technique, the mechanics didn't really get better, the deep accuracy. And for that reason, you got over the course of the season with Dylan. And again, he wasn't bad. He wasn't necessarily losing Nebraska football games, but you're saying to yourself, we're putting up with all the shenanigans. We're giving a lot of money to celebrity Patrick Mahomes status for this? Really? We can't do better? So at the end of the season, when Dylan Riley got injured, we kind of knew the way things were going. It was reported on this channel first that, hey, looks like he's going to go to Oregon. I found an inside tip, and that's exactly where he went. I believe Dylan Riley swallowed his pride. Nebraska broke up with them, and now he's decided to be the backup quarterback at Oregon to take over that program in 2027. So that's Dylan Riley. Nebraska also loses out on former 4-star recruit out of Texas, Marcus DeVilla, who was here for 1 year, transferred him from Purdue, just never played, never developed. We, again, liked his arm talent, just never got on the field, and now he's over at Albine Christian, expected to be their starting quarterback this upcoming year. Now, that's who we lost. Now, looking at who we gained, you bring in 2 quarterbacks. Mountain West Player of the Year, former Virginia Cavalier Anthony Colandrea, expected to be Nebraska's quarterback, one who we'll talk about in a second, alongside former Bellevue West product 4-star who was at Nebraska, transferred to Virginia, and now back with the Huskers. That, of course, being Daniel Kaelin. Now, for this reason, I believe Nebraska has slightly upgraded their room entering 2026. Now, it's up in the air whether or not Anthony Colandrea will be an upgrade from Dylan Riley. We're about to talk about that. But what makes Nebraska's quarterback room better is this. There is true depth. All of the top 3 quarterbacks on this team have started Power 4 games. You're not going to get that anywhere else. Anthony Colandrea started a million Power 4 games. TJ Lateef started Power 4 games. Daniel Kaelin started Power 4 game last year at Virginia. So all these guys have experience. All these guys have talent. You go from, TJ Lateef was our backup last year to all the development he's shown this offseason. He's going to be so much better. You go from Jalen Graham at quarterback 3 last year to Daniel Kaelin. Huge upgrade there. So again, the depth's so much better. We need all 3 of these guys because injuries will hit. Benchings might hit. You never know. And that's why Nebraska's quarterback room has absolutely upgraded. Now, let's get into the quarterbacks one by one. You got Colandrea as our starting quarterback, TJ Lateef, and Mr. Daniel Kaelin. But beginning with Anthony Colandrea coming in from UNLV, of course, threw for about 3,500 yards last season, 23 touchdowns at about 6 foot tall, 210 pounds, earning him a rating of an 85. Now, Anthony Colandrea, his career has been tumultuous to say the least, where again came into Virginia as a low 3-star recruit out of Fort Lauderdale, really, didn't get a whole lot of offers, but the second he got to Virginia, had a chip on his shoulder, and he earned the starting job. And again, he wasn't bad, right? Showed flashes, dual threat quarterback, gamer, gunslinger, yes, threw 9 interceptions to 3 touchdowns. It wasn't pretty, but it wasn't like it was an abomination of a season for Anthony Colandrea. It was mostly just said, hey, he's a true freshman, he's going to learn, and he's going to be a lot better in the sophomore campaign in 2024. It was the opposite. Anthony Colandrea in 2024 showed no development. He was actually worse in almost every single statistic. Again, he wasn't really as mobile. When it comes to yards per carry, he took a lot more sacks. He threw 11 interceptions. He had a fumbling issue, and he got benched a couple times for Virginia. Where at the end of the season with the Cavaliers, to say, no, we're not putting up with this. Anthony, good luck, but we're going to need you to go down to a different program. Nobody in Power 4 wanted him. He went over to UNLV. And, UNLV, it wasn't like he was just instantly the guy over there. There was a quarterback battle in the first year of Dan Mullen between him and former, 4-star recruit at Michigan, Alex Orji. And it was expected entering the season that Anthony Colandrea was going to have to trade snaps to Alex Orji until there was a injury, very, very last second. Anthony got the majority of the snaps the first game, and he didn't look back, right? He had a great year. Mountain West Player of the Year, had all these touchdowns in the air, on the ground, ran for 600 rushing yards, along with having, 23 touchdowns. He did, in fact, have 9 interceptions, still had kind of a sack issue from time to time, which you saw at Virginia, all of which you expect to clean up this year at Nebraska. But when it comes to Anthony Colandrea, at the end of the day, winners win. And this is somebody who was clutch, who won when the games got tight last year. I mean, the statistics don't lie. The film doesn't lie. The film was very impressive, and that's what's galvanized Husker fans as we enter this season. Now, talking about Anthony Colandrea and, his throw power, his mobility, his statistics specifically, there's a lot of things that are good. There are a lot of things that need improvement, right? Throw power, it's good, not great. He's somebody who could throw about 50 yards when he get to, 60, 65, 70 yards out. He's not somebody who can make every single throw on the football field. So not incredibly talented from an arm standpoint, which is fine. He was a low 3-star. That's expected, but that's not really his strength. And I always tell you, arm strength's overrated to begin with. His strengths are his mobility, right? His short yard accuracy, the fact that he is a true playmaker. It doesn't matter if the play is going nowhere. You hear the phrase off script plays when it comes to Anthony Colandrea. That's true. I mean, this dude can make off script plays like nobody in the country. Again, he's somebody who is electrifying. He has great processing speed. However, there are some issues with Anthony Colandrea, right? Quarterback IQ. I do believe his processing is fine. His progressions are fine. But Anthony Colandrea in 3 years of college has a turnover issue that's not going to go away this year for Nebraska, right? Some zebras have their stripes, and those stripes are not going to change. So I just try to prepare Nebraska fans for this. You are getting a gunslinger, fun quarterback. I mean, this will be a fun ride, for better or worse. This will be something that there will be a game where you love Anthony Colandrea, where he's throwing up 50-50 balls, jump balls, and oh my goodness, I mean, it's great. It's a great time. And there will be a game with Anthony Colandrea where he throws 3 or 4 picks and a fumble, and he's looking like Jeff Sims, and you just got to roll with the roller coaster because that's the Anthony Colandrea experience. If you expect that not to happen, I don't know what to tell you. Again, we have seen 3 years of this. Even at him at his best last year at UNLV, it even showed up. So, again, that's not the worst thing in the world. It's just you got to be prepared for turnovers. You had to be prepared for that. You also have to be prepared for the fact that, his long ball actually is not great. And also he does lack quality Power 4 experience where, yes, he did start Virginia for 2 years, but the teams who he beat Virginia were not very good. Like, this was not somebody who really broke out until last year at UNLV. And there are concerns with Anthony Colandrea. Is he a good quarterback, or is he just a quarterback who's meant for, Mount West football for the rest of his career? Can he prove himself when it comes to the Big Ten with a make it or break it season, not only for Matt Rhule, but for him? I mean, this is a make it or break it season for Anthony Colandrea in his prospects of being a future quarterback. As for some advanced statistics around Anthony Colandrea, this is what really actually excites me. You begin with the difference between him at his a year at Virginia in 2024, and you go to his year last year at UNLV. It's not even close from an advanced analytics standpoint, where, again, you look at the success rate, right? So much better. You look at the EPA per play. You look at the explosive rate. I mean, really, the only thing that's still pretty bad around Anthony Colandrea from an advanced standpoint is lost turnovers per game. That's not really going to go away. But listen, Anthony Colandrea, he went from one of the worst quarterbacks in America 2 years ago to last year being one of the best quarterbacks in America with a new change of scenery with Dan Mullen. So that's, obviously something we need to see continue to progress. But also what's exciting about Anthony Colandrea is this. You compare him to Dylan Rhule. You compare his advanced statistics to Dylan. Of course, he is in the yellow. You have Dylan here in the green. He beats him out almost every single category besides one category. Of course, Dylan was a little bit better when it comes to turnovers, but Anthony Colandrea, when it comes to, again, success rate, EPA per play, explosive rate, early down percentage, right? Late down percentage, pass EPA, rush EPA, sack rate, all of which was improved from Anthony Colandrea according to Dylan Rhule. So that gives Husker fans a lot of confidence that this could absolutely be an upgrade compared to our former 5-star quarterback. So when it comes to Anthony, it just comes down to this for him. Can he mitigate the turnovers? You want to see the electrifying nature of Anthony Colandrea. You want to see, again, him roll out to the left, to the right, find somebody on the run. You want to see him run for 5-10. You juke somebody out, take it to the house. You want to see him throw 50-50 balls. You want to see everything that excited you on UNLV. But you got to get rid of some of these turnovers. I'm going to tell you this right now. If he throws 9 interceptions this year like he threw last year at UNLV, it's going to be tough to have success, along with all the fumbles he had. If you throw up all those jump balls from time to time, yeah, a couple of those are going to get picked off. Husker fans will not be happy, especially with the prospects of a TJ Lateef or a Daniel Kaelin. So Anthony, again, he has to take this quarterback room by storm. He can't give it back to any of these guys, but just know there are some qualities in his game that are scary, are absolutely scary. And that's why I'm standoffish about just rating him like, he's going to be a huge upgrade from Dylan? Well, he does have a turnover issue. He is not incredibly talented. There is an issue at times with Anthony Colandrea taking a whole lot of sacks similar to Dylan, right? And that's not something that is going to go away. And again, I'm just worried from time to time about that Power 4 experience. Some quarterbacks are meant for ACC. Some quarterbacks are meant for the Mountain West. It is harder for a quarterback to be built for the Big Ten, especially when the season goes on. And the last thing I hope when it comes to Anthony Colandrea, and this is something he can't really control, he's an undersized quarterback. He's listed at 6 foot tall. He's about 5'10" on a good day. I am worried a little bit around Anthony Colandrea staying healthy because it's not really him, but it's most of this quarterback room for Nebraska. Look at the past 10 years. Every quarterback we have here gets injured. Okay, Casey got injured. Adrian got injured. Dylan Riley got injured. Tanner Lee got banged up. Tommy got banged up all the time. Martinez got banged up all the time. Taylor Martinez. So every single quarterback we have here gets banged up. I mean, just like clockwork. And that's where this season could unravel. Let's say Anthony's having a great year, but if he gets banged up entering the Indiana game, Oregon game, then you got to go the depth. Then you got to hope a TJ would step up, or you'd hope a Daniel would step up. I am worried about this quarterback, injury issue, because that's something that's cropped up no matter who you are. Because if you're in a Nebraska uniform, or you're a quarterback, especially a mobile quarterback, it's definitely more likely than not that he will miss some significant time. And that brings us to second quarterback on Nebraska's depth chart. This is former 4-star recruit out of Orange Lutheran. You know him, you love him, TJ Lateef, wearing number 14. Now, of course, started the final 3 games for Nebraska last year, the final 4 games plus the bowl game. Of course, you had UCLA, his first start on the road back home, and he dominated that ball game. Was one of the more impressive quarterback starts we've ever seen the past 4 years for Nebraska. I mean, just period, right? You take true freshman out of the equation, you take first start ever out of the equation. I mean, this dude was so efficient against UCLA. He barely had any incompletions. Then you go to Penn State, a little bit of a different story. It was not great for TJ. It wasn't great for the entire team who got blown out, but it wasn't like TJ was doing much to change that. Iowa, he got injured, before the Iowa game, but it was not awesome, right? The second half performance was not good by TJ. It was not efficient. And then, of course, bowl game versus Utah was still banged up, but just not an awesome performance from TJ, which brings us to this year, where I give him a pretty easy rating of an 80, which, some people would say is generous, but I give him a rating of an 80 by saying this. TJ Lateef has, in my opinion, as good of an upside as you're ever going to see at quarterback. All of his issues last year were true freshman mistakes that are fixable. Okay, what were TJ's issues last year? Could not read the defense at a very high level. Okay, was kind of thrown out there when he wasn't really expecting to play, right? Did not know the playbook at a very high level, did not eyeball at a very high level, right? Pocket presence, not great. Times progressions, maybe not as good as what you'd like to see. All of his issues were simply, hey, you just haven't played enough football. You're a true freshman. It happens, right? In modern day college football, it's very tough for true freshmen to get out there and get on the field, right? We made a mistake by doing that with Dylan. So I think a lot of people hold that against TJ. They say, oh, he wasn't great in starts. Yeah, he was a true freshman. But none of the issues you saw with TJ Lateef were because he lacks talent. Okay, what did you see from TJ Lateef? You saw somebody who's one of the faster quarterbacks we've had in a very long time. You saw somebody who's a 4-star blue chip recruit who was top 20 at his position in America. You saw somebody with great accuracy who can make plays off script very similar to Anthony Colandrea. You saw somebody who is a leader who wants to be a Nebraska Cornhusker. And honestly, you saw somebody who was efficient with the football, right? Was he great in any of these advanced statistics? No. But did not lose turnovers, right? Didn't really throw an interception until the bowl game versus Utah, right? Was fine from a success rate. Was fine from early down percentage, right? Again, was fine with the rush EPA, sack EPA. So when it comes to TJ, honestly, not to say he exceeded expectation for a true freshman, but he really did. Nobody even thought he was going to be our backup quarterback. And the fact that he had a performance versus UCLA, and stuck it out, at the end of the season where he could have quit, could have gave up, could have been a lot more of a nightmare. He could have threw 5 interceptions, but he didn't do that. I think people give him too much of a hard time against, Iowa, against Utah. It wasn't really his fault the offensive line couldn't block for him. It wasn't his fault that, the receivers couldn't catch football. It wasn't his fault the defense couldn't get a stop and save their own life, right? Was TJ really the solution? No, but he wasn't the problem. So with TJ, with a full offseason under his belt, and I try to remind you guys around him, TJ Lateef, I remember watching him at the Husker games, which was our fake spring game in 2024. And I remember watching TJ, he was a true freshman, and I thought he was going to be unplayable. I mean, you saw the upside, you saw the flashes with TJ, but I said, this dude's just not ready. And the progression he showed from last spring to last fall was uncanny. It was exponential. He was a whole different player. So if you expect a similar progression with TJ, with his work ethic, what you've seen so far, if you think he's going to take a similar jump, there's no reason why TJ Lateef can't be one of the better quarterbacks in the Big Ten if he gets his opportunity. And I want to make this abundantly clear with TJ, he will get his opportunity. TJ Lateef will play a game for Nebraska this year. He will start a game for Nebraska this year because, as we talked about, injuries happen and benchings happen. And the quarterback position never goes to plan for Nebraska. It just never does. So in that case, be prepared for an outcome where TJ Lateef is starting a significant ball game. And you'll pray at that point in time the development of this quarterback position is great enough where you're going to see a different version of TJ that's even more prepared, still has that same athleticism, same upside, and hopefully he gets that position and gets that job and he does not give it back. And then the other quarterback for Nebraska who will be in the mix to play last snaps this year, and also somebody I could very well see, I could see start a game for Nebraska, is former 4-star recruit coming out of Bellevue West. You know him. This is Daniel Kaelin. Now started only 1 game for Virginia last year. Wasn't bad. I mean, they lost the game, but again, just him having that experience was incredible, right? Again, with him being a Bellevue West kid, grew up a Nebraska fan. And here's what I love about not only TJ, I love this about Danny, both these guys, they're unselfish. I mean, TJ could have easily transferred. He could have easily transferred. He was getting interest, but he didn't. Daniel, when he entered the portal, he could have easily went anywhere else. But he said, you know what? I understand I'm probably going to be the third string quarterback for Nebraska. I'm going to take it. I'm going to take it because I love Nebraska, want to be here. This is where I've always wanted to play. And I'm going to earn it the old school way, the Brooke Behringer way. That's why I can appreciate about Daniel Kaelin. Again, he has great accuracy. He is the only quarterback here, 6'3", 220. Like, he's built like a Big Ten quarterback. He's a little thicker, which is good. But also with Dan, like, he's not a mobile quarterback necessarily, but he can run. I mean, he popped off a 70-yard run for Virginia last year, in his start versus Wake Forest. So it's not like this dude's immobile statue like Dylan Ryle. Like, he got some juice on him, right? Like, don't say Dylan, he can't, don't say he can't run. He can. So not compared to TJ or Anthony, but yeah, I mean, Dylan King could do something. So listen, I mean, he excites me. There'll be an opportunity from this season, but what I continue to say around Danny, he needs to be ready when his name's called because his name will be called at some point. And that's the bottom line. So with this quarterback room for Nebraska, you have I believe, according to all the advanced statistics, it ranks 9th in the Big Ten. When it comes to returning production experience, it's 8th in America. Nationally, about 43, according to Phil Steele, and 2 4-star quarterbacks in this room. Not bad for Nebraska entering this year, earning themselves a grade of a B-. Then you get to the running back room for Nebraska, which all offseason long has been considered to be the biggest question mark on the team. Of course, in my opinion, I believe this is a huge downgrade entering this year. You lose Emmett Johnson, who is almost irreplaceable, right? One of the best running backs we've had in the past 20 years, was in the mix to win the Heisman, was, All-American, all Big Ten, every single statistic, every single award. He was in the mix for that, right? Emmett Johnson was great, was drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs, but it's not just him, right? You lose a Kenneth Williams, who was our lead kick returner, right? Who, if he were to stay, was in position to, be in the mix at running back to get some legit snaps. And then you lose Jabari Parker to Grambling State, who was a legit 4-star recruit who we all believed in coming out of St. Louis. He transferred away from Nebraska after 1 year. But we did gain some prospects, right? You bring in Rhule, three-star running back, who is in the mix to start for Nebraska. Day one, true hidden gem. The Huskers believe they found one there. And you bring in Tiki Hayes, the very last second, who we added, just a couple weeks ago, formerly at Penn State, former 4-star recruit, somebody with speed, with quickness, who can lower the shoulder. Now, Penn State didn't really work out, and he was only there for 1 year. We'll talk about him in a second, but somebody with also great upside alongside Rhule. So overall, with the running back room, I want to make this abundantly clear before we get to these guys one by one. It's a room that is deeper than last year, no doubt. But that doesn't mean it's better. Deeper doesn't mean better. What Nebraska needs to find in the running back room, who's the elite talent, who's the top-end talent like an Emmett Johnson. That's why it's a downgrade, because you can't replace a bell cow elite back like Emmett Johnson overnight unless you go crazy in the portal. Okay, looking at Nebraska's running back room here it is, right? 6 backs on the roster. Let's go over every single one by one. You begin with who I believe is going to be running back 1 for the Huskers, former 4-star recruit, longtime Oregon commit, wide receiver as well, Nyziah Mozee. Now, first of all, I want to make this abundantly clear. There isn't going to be a traditional, running back 1 in terms of, Nyziah Mozee is going to get 25 carries a game. These other guys are going to get like a 5 or 6 combined carries. It is going to be a committee situation. More so, again, it's not going to be, 4 guys trading carries, 3 guys trading carries. What E.J. Barthel, Dana Holgorsen, what they're trying to find a dynamic duo at running back, where you find somebody who has speed, who's dynamic from a pass catching standpoint, who can block, and then you find the power back to go alongside him. So Nyziah Mozee, he's more of the speed. He's more of the sonic. Somebody can get involved in the passing department, third down back. But you got Rhule, who might be the power right behind that. So just take that in mind. It's not a committee situation where there's 4 backs getting playing time. There's really 2. They want to find 2 guys who can complement each other, and those guys will get the majority of the carries. But beginning with Nyziah Mozee, again, this is somebody who right now I do believe is the best on Nebraska's roster. There's a couple really, really good attributes about Nyziah Mozee. The reason why I believe he's the best, number 1, he fits the Dana Holgorsen offense more than anybody else. Dana Holgorsen, a non-negotiable. You need to be able to catch the football, run routes, and block at a high level, and Nyziah Mozee does that as good as anybody right now within the running back core, right? He is somebody who has great speed. I wouldn't say it's phenomenal speed, but it's good enough speed. It's great speed. But more than anything, great quickness. You can go from 0 to 100 in a split second. His vision, it's going to be a lot better this year. I think his vision was bad last year just because he was a receiver, right? He was thrown into the running back position overnight. He didn't know what to do. He didn't know how to read the A gap, B gap, shoot through it in a split second. But now with him having a full offseason under his belt, learning from E.J. Barthel, being a true running back, I expect the vision to get a whole lot better. I'm not worried about that. You saw a lot of progression in the spring game and in all spring ball. So vision, while I give it a D+, I don't think it'll be a D+ by the time it gets to the year. Playmaking ability, B minus. Ball security, B minus. A for pass catch, no question about it. And pass pro, earns him a C minus. But you know what's crazy about the pass pro? He's probably our second best pass protecting back on the team at a C minus. It's not great. It's not great pass protecting back, but it's a lot better than some of the guys we're about to talk about. We'll put it at that, like a true freshman or a third year back we're about to talk about. So with Isaiah Mozee, it just comes down to this. The reason why I believe he's going to get the majority of the snaps at Nebraska for running back is this. He provides the most versatility. He fits the offense the best. He has as much upside as anybody, as much quickness as anybody. Catches the football, he can block at a high level. And you can be creative with Isaiah Mozee in so many different ways, where you could put him not only a running back, but you could put him in the slide. You could put him on jet sweeps. You could put him out wide receiver. He's just one of those guys who is a Swiss Army knife gadget type of player who anywhere you put him, he's going to have success. And what I love about Isaiah Mozee is this. He's a coach's kid. I have an affinity toward coach's kids. His dad's on the staff, Jamar Mozee. And when you're a coach's kid, you know what to do, right? You know that nothing's going to be handed to you. Everything's going to be earned. Your dad has likely been hard on you your entire life. His dad was his high school football coach. So he understands, hey, when my dad, kind of looking over his shoulder, looking at me, I got to ball out, right? I'm not going to be handed anything. I have to earn the starting job. I have to earn the majority of the carries. And I believe Isaiah Mozee, with what you heard in spring ball, he is the most complete running back in Nebraska's roster. Not to say that he is guaranteed to be the Huskers starting running back. He's not. Okay. And what's exciting about this room for the Huskers is this. You have 4 guys who could be the starting running back. So just because Isaiah could be the guy right now, by the time fall ball's over, you could be a Tiki Hayes we're about to talk about. It could be a Mekhi Nelson. But what's exciting about him with Isaiah Mozee is that phenomenal upside and somebody who has some attributes that these other running backs don't have. That brings us to running back 2 and running back 3. Now, these two are kind of a toss-up. You could argue it's Jamal. You could argue it's Mekhi at running back 2 and 3. But right now, I will give that nod to Mr. Jamal Rhule, true freshman, who was one of the MVPs of spring ball. Now, I contend that Isaiah Mozee actually had the better spring ball, but Jamal Rhule caught the headlines because he was more of a surprise, right? We kind of expected Isaiah Mozee to progress and get really good, but Jamal, some people thought he was going redshirt, including myself. I thought Jamal was going to take a little bit of time. I thought he was going to get in the mix a second year. Not that way at all. Jamal came on the scene hot and had a great spring game. Was the standout of the spring game. Now, former 3-star recruit coming out of North Carolina, lists at 6 foot tall, about 250 pounds at this point in time. Now, what excites me about Jamal Rhule is this. Bruising back with quickness, better IQ than what you'd imagine for a true freshman. Now, again, his IQ needs to progress. I'm not going to, BS you, right? Again, he needs to, progress his footwork, right? Again, at times he's too patient in the pocket. At times, maybe he's not patient enough, right? He'll shoot through when nothing's there. But when it comes to Jamal Rhule from a, athleticism standpoint, there's a lot that really, really excites you. And I love his work ethic. He's somebody who has come to Nebraska with the right mentality. He's trying to play day one. Now, he's not trying to sell the bench for anybody. He understands he has a huge, huge, uncanny opportunity in front of him, right? This is a running back room that is wide open. And Jamal Rhule said, I'm going to play day one. I don't care. I'm a 3-star recruit. He believed that he was underrated from the very get-go. He believed that he was a hidden weapon from the very get-go. So he came to Nebraska with the right mentality. But when it comes to Jamal Rhule, I'll say this. Again, nothing will be handed him just because he had a great spring ball. Kind of irrelevant in my mind. Spring ball is irrelevant. That was months and months and months ago. This running back room is so different than what it was 4 months ago. You bring in a new player. You have Mekhi who's back. Jamal is a different player. Isaiah's a different player. Everybody's on square one. Jamal if he's starting for Nebraska, he's going to have to earn the old school way. But it comes down to not his athleticism. It comes down to his IQ, how prepared he is, because that's what makes you special as a running back. Not necessarily, your gifts, but it's okay. Can you be patient? Can you have great vision? Also, Jamal Rhule needs to progress his pass catching, learning the playbook, obviously, at a high level, academics along with that. Now, I'm not that I'm worried about that, but all should come when it comes to true freshman. But overall, Jamal Rhule, very exciting season for the Huskers. A true bruiser to pair alongside these other guys. Then you have running back 3 for Nebraska. Again, kind of all these guys are interchangeable within the top 4, depending on how fall ball goes. This is Mekhi Nelson. Now, Mekhi has been a huge storyline, right? This offseason with the off-the-field issues, with what happened down there in Florida. Now, again, that's all water on the bridge at this point. We believe that's behind him. But Mekhi, it should be brought up because, listen, it was not a great look, right, for the guy with his upside, with his speed. But at this point in time, it's all ball, right? We got to put that in the back of your mind. You don't want to forget about it, but you need to give him grace. And you got to hope that he is a new changed man after that incident. But what excites me about Mekhi Nelson is this. People forget about this easily because of what happened. But Mekhi Nelson was the standout of the bowl game. Had a huge run against Utah that you saw not only his physicality, but you saw his speed. And I'll tell you this right now for a fact. Mekhi Nelson's the fastest running back on the team. He is a true 4-4 burner. And there's a reason why EJ Barthel, whenever he's discussing the running backs, the first player out of his mouth is Mekhi Nelson, because Mekhi Nelson's infatuating. There are definitely shades of Emmett Johnson in his game. I mean, not only is he fast, he's quicker. He's quicker than Emmett. He's faster than Emmett. Yes, he's undersized. Again, about 5'11", right about 200 pounds. So hopefully he can get up to about 205, maybe 210 when it's all said and done. But again, you could easily make an argument he's the most athletic running back on the team, and I'll grant you that. But very similar to Jamal Rhule, I'm never worried about Mekhi Nelson's athleticism. I'm worried, first off, about the off-field issues, but I think that's gone now. I think he's a new man, changed man. He's somebody who's putting a lot of work right off the field. Again, he is, going to anger therapy, right? He's not, I don't want to act like he's a criminal. He's not. He's just kind of dealt with some tough times, and he's going to be better because of that. But I'm not worried about that, but more so, I'm worried about him on the football field when it comes to, first off, his IQ, which again, same deal, Jamal Rhule. At times with Mekhi, he's not patient enough, or he is, he's not patient enough, or he's way too patient. He'll either shoot through something that's not there, or he's just going to stay, and get tackled for a loss. We need Mekhi Nelson to have the footwork and the IQ that Emmett Johnson had, because again, Emmett's one of his good friends. So that's the first thing with Mekhi. Number two, block at high level. He cannot block. Needs to block at a higher level. Catching passes that improved over the course of last year. He needs to get better. Needs to get on the same levels, I'd say, Mozee. And then when it comes to Mekhi, it's just about being more of a physical back. He's breaking some tackles last year, but that's really an asset that running backs need. You need, it's one thing to be a speed back, and that's great, but in the Big Ten, you need more than speed. I mean, you need to be able to break tackles, multiple guys, right? If somebody gets your paws on you, okay, you're going to get out of it. You're going to truck a dude, you're going to stiff arm him, dude. I don't care if you're 200 pounds, 220 pounds, 240 pounds, you need to break tackles in this conference. Those are all things we're looking at before when it comes to Mekhi Nelson. But listen, I mean, if he were to live up to his expectations, if he can max those attributes, I see no reason Mekhi Nelson can't be a starting running back at some point this year, right? Get rid of the off the field issues, get rid of all that. We don't know what's going to happen there. There could be a suspension in his future. You never know with anything. But when it comes to Mekhi Nelson, hopefully all is in the past for him and he can ball out, because very, very talented, no question about it. But it's not just him. You have three other running backs in Nebraska's room, one of which is definitely in competition for the starting job. Now, we just added Tyke Hayes a couple days ago. Now, I will say this. I was on this channel very, very outspoken for months. Nebraska needed a Atlanta running back transfer. Not because this room lacked talent, but because this room lacked experience. And it's very, very, very hard to convince the fan base to roll with this running back room with a lack of talent, lack of experience entering a year 4 of Matt Rhule. You need somebody who has done something. Now, Tyke Hayes does not have experience, but he's just another body, another guy with talent. And he is the only running back in this room who is a 4-star recruit coming out of high school at the running back position. Isaiah was a 4-star, but Isaiah was a 4-star receiver, not running back. Tyke was a 4-star running back, and he was a blue chip, right? A lot of offers. Ohio State wanted him, along with a couple others. Of course, committed to Penn State, but he is a huge wild card for this exact reason. He was at Penn State for 1 year and transferred, right? Some people worry about his academics. That's why he went down to Iowa Western for, a semester to figure that out. Some people worry about him off the field. There's a couple things here and there, right, with him showing up on time. But, I'll say this around Tyke Hayes. We've heard this internally as well. He is as talented as anybody in this room. He's as physical as anybody in this room. And he's ready to play day one. It's not like we're bringing him in to be our 4th string running back. Him, Jamal Rhule, Isaiah Mozee, Mekhi Nelson, all have an opportunity when we get to Ohio to be that guy. All of them have an opportunity. Let's see if Tyke Hayes takes advantage of it. But again, him and Jamal Rhule in the same category. You have 2 speed backs. You have Isaiah Mozee and you have Mekhi with the speed backs. You have Jamal Rhule and you have Tyke who are the more physical backs. Both of them are kind of on the same playing field in a way. Tyke is a year older, but he's just learning the playbook just like Jamal Rhule. But I'd say with Tyke, he is more physical. He definitely had a better high school career, but he's not as fast as Jamal, right? Maybe none of those guys are burners, but he's not as fast as Jamal. So both those guys, that's going to be a huge battle. Who can be the bruising back within the rotation? You want speed back, you want a bruising back. But Tyke, I'd say he's just as talented as Jamal. No question, he's just as talented as Jamal. But I'm not worried about his talent. I'm worried about him, first off, acquainting himself to Lincoln, learning the playbook at a very, very high level, being ready to go. Because, again, he's getting a year with just about a month of the season. That's a little bit of a red flag, right? It's going to take some time with a guy like him. But Tyke Hayes is certainly a lot of talent. And then 2 other guys in Nebraska's running back room. You got Quinn Ives, who I give a rating of a 72. That could be a little bit generous on my part. Listen, with Quinn Ives, he's entering his 4th year, was a low 3-star coming out of the East Coast. At some point, I say this all the time, if you got it or you don't got it. It is year 4. If you are running back 5 in year 4, why are you sticking around, man? I don't know why he's still here, to be honest with you. I hope Quinn Ives proves me wrong. And I told you guys this with Quinn. I want him to have one role for us this year. Just one role. I want him to do either one of 2 things. The more preferred role is to be our short yardage back. If there's a 3rd down and 1, you put in Quinn Ives, he gets the conversion, walks right at the field. If it is a 4th down and 1, you need a conversion, you put in Quinn Ives, you get off the field. And if it is a you're on the goal line. You need a touchdown. You put in Quinn Ives, you get in I formation, he gets a touchdown, you walk out the field. That's all I want from Quinn Ives. Be a short yardage back. And if that doesn't work out, and maybe you prefer Tyke, you prefer Jamal Rhule, put him at fullback in the I form. I just want Quinn Ives to have a role. Is he a superstar? No. Will he play more than 10 times a game? Probably not. I just need him to have a role. But what's also worries me about Quinn Ives is his injury background. He's got injured. He got injured in spring ball, last year. Got injured in spring ball this year. So this somebody always gets injured for Nebraska. Should be brought up around him. But at this point, I just don't really think he'll be that big of a game changer for the Huskers. And then last but not least, you got Connor Booth in the second year. Again, really no experience, low 3-star coming out of in-state Nebraska. I mean, he had as many rushing yards as you're ever going to see, in his senior year. But at the end of the day, it's so hard to recruit the running back position. You really can't look at stats. You have to look at traits, athleticism, speed, size. I'll tell you this around Connor Booth. He has size. I don't think he has speed or quickness that's worthy of Big Ten. So at this point, you got it or you don't got it. It's not like he's going to come on the scene in 2027, 2028. So it'll be a big year for him to prove he's worthy, at least get a role just like Quinn Ives. If he doesn't, might be time to move on from him, but that is Connor Booth. Overall, with Nebraska's running back room, about 17th in the Big Ten. There's only one worse. Some pundits say it's Washington, some say it's Maryland, just because of a lack of experience, right? 73rd in America, returning production, literally dead last. I mean, there are 136 FBS programs, Nebraska 130 with snaps. I mean, that's ridiculous. And 2 4-stars in the room. Nebraska's running back room earns a grade of a D+. Okay. That brings us to Nebraska's wide receiver and tight end room entering this year. Now, let's start off with the receivers here. This is a unit that had a lot of expectations last season. You bring in Dan Key, from Kentucky, who we thought was going to be this huge gem. Had basically a couple, really, really high quality seasons over there. Was being projected to be the super high NFL draft pick. Didn't really work out, right? He's with the Broncos right now on a UDFA deal, but was undrafted, right? You went from being a second or third round pick to not even sniffing his name being called. So disappointing, but you get rid of him and you bring back pretty much everybody else. You bring in Kwazi Gilmer, who's kind of Danke 2.0. They're different receivers, but similar experience, similar upside. Nebraska fans definitely believe in Kwazi. We'll talk about him in a second. You have Larry Miles coming in, 3-star receiver, who will be in the mix to play this year. And you have Nayland Scott, who's kind of like a Janiran 2.0 3-star coming out of Georgia. So for that reason, definitely an upgrade. You kind of, with Dane Key and Kwazi, they're very similar, in experience. So that's pretty neutral. But the fact you add true freshmen, keep everybody else in development, definitely a little bit of an upgrade for the Huskers at receiver. As for tight end, it's neutral, right? You lose Heinrich Harburg, who definitely had talent. Didn't break out for Nebraska last year like what maybe some people expected, but he had all the talent in the world. And you get rid of also Markway, who's now an edge rusher for the Huskers. So you lose 2 of those guys at tight end, and you bring in Luke Sorensen, who will definitely be in the mix for Nebraska as a true freshman, but definitely a lot to ask for from a 3-star recruit. For that reason, the tight position is definitely neutral. Okay, getting into our weapons here for Nebraska. First off, the starting lineup. Let's go left to right. You have Nyziah Hunter, who is our first 90-plus club player on the team. Now, he was a standout last season. Where, again, transfer from Cal. He's going into, his junior campaign from a 4-star recruit. I expect him to be in the mix for a lot of awards this year. Had over 600 receiving yards, 5 touchdowns. Again, he was the most consistent receiver on Nebraska's roster. Now, I'm not going to act like he was consistent every single game. There were some games where Nyziah Hunter was on the milk carton, but it was a lot better than some other guys we're about to talk about. Again, there were some plays with Nyziah where he was the main factor in the Cincinnati ball game. He had that great, fade ball for a touchdown in the end zone, right? He had a great play. That was a screen pass against Michigan State where it took about 60 yards with one shoot, right? He has speed. He has size. He's a true receiver X with improved route running. He's physical from a blocking standpoint. The thing I'd say about Nyziah Hunter all the time is this, however. He is, no question about it, a jack of all trades. He does everything well. Speed, size, catch radius, 50-50 balls, route running, all of that's fine. None of it's elite. Top end speed you could argue is elite, but he doesn't do everything. But none of it's just great. None of it stands out a whole lot. This year, Nyziah's objective, what could be elite? He is a jack of all trades, master of none. What can he be a master of? What I hope from Nyziah Hunter this year, I want him to be a deep ball threat. What I mean by deep ball threat is this: when, let's say, Anthony, we know Anthony's going to throw it deep. Okay, when Anthony's throwing deep, I hope Nyziah is open to 40 yards down the field. He throws him in stride. Or let's say the 50-50 jump ball, Nyziah goes up and gets it with his hands with his catch radius. We need Nyziah Hunter to be that type of receiver. We haven't had that type of receiver in years, and that's something you can't get from these other two. You can't get that from Kwazi. You can't get that from Jacory. He needs to be the most physical receiver on this roster, not only in the pursuit of the ball in the air, But from a blocking standpoint, that also needs to progress. But when Isaiah Hunter, and this is a conversation we talk about with all these receivers, we have a really good receiver room, a lot of talent everywhere. Who can be the receiver, the elite receiver who could be a top 3 round draft pick? Who could be in the mix to be an All Big Ten type of guy, All American? If I were to guess, it's going to be Isaiah Hunter. If there's a single guy who's going to be, it's going to be an Isaiah, but he needs to be a master of something. It's not about having a good receiver room; it's about being elite, and we need an elite guy. And if he's an elite guy, if he's a team that, if he's a guy that, Big Ten defenses start to get a little bit nervous about, that elevates Jacory's play, Kwazi's play, and the rest of the room. That brings us to Kwazi Gilmer coming in from UCLA, also a junior receiver, wearing number 11. Of course, last year for the Bruins, a little bit over 500 receiving yards, 5 touchdowns, and 6 foot tall, 200 pounds, earning him a rating of an 88. Now, listen, Kwazi, in my opinion, is like a Jacory, but a better Jacory, right? More statistics to his name, better route runner, better case radius. Now, the thing around Kwazi that scares me a little bit is this. Not a phenomenal blocker, no question about it, right? He's not somebody who just knocks your socks off blocking at a high level. I expect that to change this year, but, definitely remains to be seen. But also what worries me about Kwazi, he is somebody who's incredibly productive, but he's not somebody who just takes over ball games. Like, you'd expect him necessarily to, have a game here and there where he had 100 receiving yards. That's never happened in his entire career. He has never took over a game with 100 or more receiving yards. Hopefully that changes because, again, as we lead it off the video with this, or lead it off the segment by saying this, you need a receiver who's elite. So again, he has the size, he has the production, he's quick, he has a great catch radius, route running versatility, he's a fluid runner, run for catchability. But again, just needs to improve his blocking top end speed consistency and his release off the line of scrimmage. And then you get to Jacory Barney, who I'd say is pretty easily one of the biggest fan favorites on this roster, earning himself a grade of an 87. Now, listen, I'm of the belief that Jacory of the big three is actually the worst. Not to say he's bad at all. Jacory's really good, but give me an Isaiah Hunter over Jacory. Give me Kwazi over Jacory. And the reason why I say this is not because Jacory lacks talent. Jacory, you could argue, is more talented than all those guys. What I have an issue with when it comes to Jacory is this. He showed very, very limited progression last year, where Nyziah took a huge jump, from his Cal career to his Nebraska career. Kwazi took a little bit of a jump from 2024 to 2025. Jacory statistically actually had a better year his true freshman season than what you saw last year. He struggled to get involved. There were multiple games, Jacory, I believe there were 4 or 5 games in a row where he had less than 30 receiving yards. He was on the milk carton consistently. That cannot happen with a guy of his stature. It just cannot happen. Okay. When you are Mr. Jacory Barney, when you run a 4.3 40 time, when you are quick, when you are elusive, when you can break okay, well, you can't break tackles, but you can make people miss. You got to have games where you're at least having 50, 60 receiving yards pretty consistently. And Jacory, there were games where he just didn't show up. He didn't put on like cleats. Can't happen this year. Again, Jacory excites me from a speed standpoint. He excites me because of his ceiling. He excites me because he has burst. He has versatility. I think he gets too much of a bad rap within the fan base. But this season will come down to a couple things for Jacory. Number one, when he has the ball in space, which he does from time to time, especially on punt returns, you need to be able to break tackles. Every single time, a paw gets on him, he will come down. I mean, there will be a light breeze and he will come down. Jacory needs to break tackles. If you cannot break tackles, you are not going to be very good. You're just not going to be very good. Need to put on a little bit of size. You can listen right now around 170. Think it's about 180. Oh, great. Okay, you need to be a little more physical. Needs to run block a little bit higher level. He needs to improve his route running. Where at times with Jacory, he can't beat man coverage. It's one thing to have speed, but everybody got speed in the Big Ten. When you play a high state, all those guys run 4.3s, 4.2s. Speed's one thing, quickness is one thing, but you need to be able to run routes. And Jacory, at least down the field, deep ball route running, he does not get open at a very, very high level. He just doesn't. The route running needs to improve. And that just goes down to his separation. But Jacory, I'd say he's as talented as any receiver on this roster. It's a big year for him. He needs to be elite. He needs to prove what he's worthy, or else we might have to have tough conversations in the future. He needs to break out receiver and at punt returner. And I think he'll do so. I feel really good with this receiver room with the development of Daniel Holgorsen. Then you have Mr. Luke Lindenmeyer as our starting tight end, former walk-on coming out of Papio La Vista, senior, wear number 44. Now, last year, not bad, right? Had over 300 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns, earning him a rating of an 81. Now, Luke Lindenmeyer, I'll say this around him. He is one of the best blocking tight ends in America. That is a great thing. Last year, he left a little bit to be desired from a blocking standpoint. There were a couple times where Dane Holgorsen was calling him out. But, for the most part, Luke Lindenmeyer, what you saw is what you got. Decent run blocker. He kind of exceeded my expectations from a pass catching standpoint, right? Getting over 300 receiving yards, not bad. But with Luke Lindenmeyer, the issue I have is this. It's not really his fault. we're kind of asking him to do more than what he's supposed to do. He's a true blocking tight end. He's kind of like a Nate Borgature in that way, former walk-on. Luke Lindenmeyer will never be a quarterback's best friend in terms of, having 4.5 speed. He'll never have that 6'6" frame that you want. He'll never have the super long arms that you want. And that's what you kind of dream of at tight end. There is a role for Luke Lindenmeyer on this football team. There is room for maybe tight end one as a blocking tight end. But when you start to force him as, this great vertical threat, that's where you start to say, like, that's not his role. That's not what he's supposed to do. Who can step up instead of him at tight end to be that vertical threat to match alongside Luke Lindenmeyer? That's what I'm trying to find. But overall, he's not bad. I mean, he's pretty good. One of the better tight ends we have in a long time. Great blocking tight end, which is, again, at times, it's no block, no rock. I'd rather have a block tight end than anything else. Because, again, if you can't block, you're just receiving threat. You're just a receiver. You're not actually a tight end. So overall, Luke Lindenmeyer, pretty good for the Huskers. And then you get to the depth pieces within the weapon department, right? Let's go one by one here. You got Mr. Janiran Bonner, former 4-star, entering a senior season now, coming off of an absolutely significant injury, of course, towards ACL, first game of the season versus Cincinnati. That is definitely concerning. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. Like, that is all definitely concerning, right? Because we have shown the tendency with our players in the past, when they tear an ACL, they're out for an extended period of time. But when it comes to Janiran Bonner, I mean, there's just so many things that he does. If he's healthy for Nebraska this year, which I expect him to be, there's so many things that he does that you can't teach first off, but you're just not going to get from normal receivers. He is the most physical receiver on this roster. He can block at a very, very high level. He is a Swiss arm knife. You could put him at fullback, running back, tight end, slot, out wide, right? Play literally every single spot, right? He will do whatever you ask of him. He is a true team player. That is what I love about Janiran Bonner. So you have him who, hopefully, if he's healthy, he's expected to break out and be that guy that we were hoping we'd see last season before his injury. You have Cortez Mills, who I think doesn't get talked about enough. He is somebody who I expect to be a huge breakout player this year for the Huskers, right? Was one of the biggest recruits we've landed at the receiver position in years. The most ridiculous high school tape you will ever see. I mean, he was just mossing dudes in high school tape over and over and over again. I mean, you can't teach that type of stuff, right? Catch readiness of just going up and get it, right? One-handed balls, I mean, he's ridiculous. With Cortez and his improved route running and improved weight physicality, he's in for a big year, and he will rotate the ball game a lot. You have Quinn Clark, who was a fan favorite, who had a really good spring game. I mean, he only had one catch in the spring game, but that one catch was a one-hand snag for a touchdown. Had a couple catches in the ball game here and there. Now, with Quinn Clark, I am of the belief maybe a little bit overrated. Like, he has 5 career receptions. Like, not 10, not 20. He has 5 career receptions. I'd still say Cortez is ahead of him pretty easily because Cortez has 2 times more snaps and 2 times less years. And Cortez, you'd argue, could have a high upside. Janiran's obviously had both of them because Janiran does something the other guys don't do. But Quinn Clark, he is the only guy in this room who's going to get legit playing time, who's 6'5", can go up and get it, can moss dudes, and has great hands. And also, not to act like Quinn Clark is stiff, like, he can run too. He runs about a 4.5 40 time long strider. Is Quinn Clark quick? No, but he has good top end speed. So with Quinn, he excites me, and there will be packages for him, no question about it. Like, he will get in the ball game, on goal line situations. Nate Holgerson, love him or hate him in this department. He likes to throw fades. He just does. And that's going to really line up for Quinn Clark and Nyziah Hunter. Their names will be called. And then you have Luke Sorensen here, true freshman tight end. He is who I expect to be tight end 2 for the Huskers at this point in time. Get 6'3", 240, earns him a rating of a 77. And then in day with Luke Sorensen, I mean, he's exceeded expectations. He's already one of the best blocking tight ends in the roster. He's somebody who has really, really decent size at 240. He's about 250 actually at this point in time. So he's built like a linebacker. He's just trying to improve his hands, his route running, trying to be the vertical threat that maybe we're not getting with Luke Lindenmeyer. But I'm excited to see what Luke Sorensen can do in fall ball because a lot of things around his game that is definitely, definitely exciting. As for the rest of the receiver and title room for the Huskers, I mean, you got Larry Miles in the mix at receiver as well, who, I mean, definitely his name should be mentioned because, I mean, he's a true freshman phenom, was one of the sneaky, spring ball MVPs. Nobody ever talked about Larry Miles, but there are multiple clips, or at least by the media team. I mean, he was mossing dudes. He was mossing dudes left and right. He's a slot receiver, so there will be a niche for Larry Miles in this team. I expect him to get some significant snaps, at least early in the season. You have Jeremiah Jones as well, who is around, 75, 74 grade. And he is 6'4", 225 pounds. This is a big year for Jeremiah Jones, especially in the low receiver room. Hopefully, maybe he gets involved at tight end. We could see that for a Jeremiah. Some people, again, he was being recruited to play tight end. So he could be that vertical threat that maybe you're not getting from a Luke Lindenmeyer, Luke Sorensen, because again, he runs a confirmed 4.40 time. He was a track athlete. I mean, ridiculous. So we'll see what happens there with the Jeremiah Jones. You have a couple of true freshmen in there. Again, you got Nayland Scott, Jamari Brown, Mo Purify. You got DJ Singleton, who's not bad, former walk-on, Keelan Smith, Demetrius Bell, who's also in this receiver room for Nebraska, who's been injured for the past 2 years. But if you know the legend Demetrius Bell, you know, right? Was somebody who's Jacory Barney, who was Jacory Barney before Jacory Barney. Phenomenal speed, quickness. You're just kind of hoping he's the same guy that he once was. As for tight end, alongside Luke Sorensen, Luke Lindenmeyer, you have Carter Nelson, who I'm going to give a grade of a 76. It just comes this around Carter. Can he stay healthy, number one? Can he block at a high level, number two? And can he actually execute on Saturdays? Because at the end of the day with Carter, I'm not buying any more hype around him. I got to see it in person. I got to see it. Because I'm just worried with the hip injuries he's had, shoulder injuries he's had, he's never going to be the same guy. And if he is the same guy, I'm worried that he doesn't have the blocking to back that up. And if he does have blocking to back it up, okay, let's see you in the vertical threat, right? Let's see you actually produce. Practice clips are one thing, hype is one thing. Let's actually see it on Saturdays with Mr. Carter Nelson. You got Keaton Ectornock, who's a name you should know. He's going to be block tight for the Huskers this year. He'll play a significant amount of snaps. Eric Ingerson's also in the receiver room as well. He had a really, really good spring ball. One of the breakouts there for the Huskers at tight end. Overall, with this receiver room, specifically the receiver room, they earn a grade of the Big Ten of 5th in the conference, nationally 21st, returning production 23rd, and 7 total 4-stars. So this is a room that earns an A-. It's one of the best, on this entire team. It's stout. It's phenomenal. We just hope it breaks out on Saturdays because there's always hype in this receiver room, and it never just lives up to the expectations that we set for it. Really quick, we are just getting started. Oh my goodness, with the offensive line, defensive line, rest of the team, and my expectations this season. Really quick though, I gotta thank the partner of today's video, that of course being PrizePicks. Now listen, PrizePicks is the #1 sports application in America, partner of the channel all year long with college football, NFL, everything. And right now, hey, you can go on there. If you feel some sort of way about Nebraska, now is the time to make some happen, whether it's us qualifying for the Big Ten championship, the playoffs, right? To go over on our projected win total. So you know what I'm doing? Hey, might as well gotta have some belief in this team, right? Let's pick yes here on Nebraska to make the Big Ten championship. But hey, if you're saying, okay, maybe not, around Nebraska, or maybe not around that, okay, go on the CFL, go on the NFL, right? A lot of stuff on there for PrizePicks. But again, you guys know the deal. Use my code May. Put up $5, get $50 back into the allowance. Only play responsibly, and if you're the man, so big shout out PrizePicks for funding me on the channel. Next up for Nebraska to round out this offense is none other than what some would argue, what many would argue, is the most important position on this team. In order for Nebraska to have success, we need this position to break out. It is an absolute non-negotiable. The trenches, the pipeline, the Husker offensive line. Now, it's not even particularly close. You compare last year's unit to this year's unit, it is a huge upgrade. With the Huskers, they lose some productive pieces. You lose Rocco Spindler, who's a big-time 4-star transfer coming in from Notre Dame. He wasn't bad for Nebraska at guard, but he left a lot to be desired. You lose Henry Lateef, who's been a standout so far as an undrafted free agent for the Buccaneers. Again, he was not bad, very similar to Rocco Spindler, but he left a lot to be desired. You lose Teddy Prohaska, who had a very tumultuous tenure with Nebraska. Of course, multiple injuries, was not great in pass protection. He is now retired from football. You lose Turner Corcoran along with a couple other pieces of dead weight, and you lose really a full freshman class from Nebraska. That's really the only bit that really hurts. You lose a Brian Tapu, who had a lot of upside for the Huskers. You lose a JuJu Marks, who was a 4-star recruit coming to Kansas, and really the biggest loss for Nebraska on the offensive line. You lose former high 3-star center Houston Torres, the Michigan Wolverines, who, by the way, is in the mix to start for them this year. That's somebody who has had as much upside on the team in Nebraska. Let him walk after what happened with firing Donovan Raiola. Now, the reason why it's a big upgrade is you bring in not only talent in the transport on the offensive line, you bring in experience. You bring up Banga with a ton of experience. Brandon Black, who started 3 years at Iowa State. Treba Balati, who started this past season at South Carolina. Along with Klama Puma, former 4-star, coming in as a true freshman. And of course, Jeepway Lonnie Tees. It's not even particularly close. This is an offensive line that has been completely made over. It's been made new, particularly from a pass pro standpoint. You bring in guys with athleticism, size, who can block in the pass with phenomenal upsides. And Nebraska's offensive line is certainly looking up. But let's get into it specifically, shall we? One by one, left to right here, beginning with Nebraska's starting lineup. Now, let's start off with Elijah Pritchett, who is one of the few 5-star recruits on this roster, the first of which we've talked about. You can see he has a wild card symbol by his name. Of course, has played in 40 games his entire career. Of course, starting off at Alabama, now Nebraska, started 20 of them. Now, the thing about Elijah Pritchett is this. His career has been very questionable. That's the word I'd use. It's been questionable because when you're a 5-star recruit, you have expectations. Alabama fans, when he transferred to Nebraska, you remember talking to them, and what did they tell you? They said he was one of the worst tackles they've ever seen in the history of their program. This man could not pass block. He could not run block. He was a liability off the field. I'll just bring this up when it comes to Elijah Pritchett. He has gotten arrested 2 times. And at Nebraska, he has had some similar off-the-field issues, hasn't got arrested, but has not been awesome at times for Nebraska, right? That's why he did not start at the beginning of last season for the Big Red. So Elijah Pritchett, he's had some issues here and there. And to be honest with you, if you remember from last year, in the last offseason for Nebraska, I told you that Elijah Pritchett was the biggest concern I had on this entire roster, that I honestly did not think Elijah Pritchett was not going to be any good. And for the majority of last year, I was right. Elijah Pritchett was unplayable. Against Cincinnati, unplayable. I mean, some of the worst tape you will ever see from an offensive lineman. That's not sugarcoating it. Versus Michigan State, there was a series where in 3 plays, he gave up 3 sacks. Him and him alone. I've never seen anything like it. Elijah Pritchett gave up 3 sacks, 3 plays. It was not just the pass protection, but it was the penalties, right? It was huge deal with Elijah where he had penalty issue. But I sail that around Elijah Pritchett. They stuck it out with him. They continued to put him on the field. And they finally reaped the rewards at the end of the season, where against Penn State, he was serviceable, but he played great against Iowa. He played phenomenal against Utah in the bowl game. He was really the only guy who actually showed up. And that's thanks to the development of G. Wade. So entering this year, I mean, it is a massive year for Elijah Pritchett. Now, you're hearing some speculation that he's going to be in the mix to be a first-round pick, second-round pick. I don't buy that at all. And that's why, people were asking Jeep Wade in spring ball, hey, could Elijah Pritchett live to his upside? And Jeep said, hey, he's still far ways to go, because he is a far ways to go. Elijah Pritchett, I am never worried about him from a run blocking standpoint. You can take Elijah Pritchett's run blocking to the bank. This dude is phenomenal at the department. He has a great size, 6'6". You do not have to be worried about his arm length, right? Him in the second level. You don't have to worry about his strength, him finishing blocks, his experience, or his upside. But what you need to be worried about when it comes to Elijah Pritchett is his consistency. I'm not going to crown him after 2 good games of him starting when the other 18 games of him starting were abysmal, right? Again, it's a nice start, but you got to see it over the course of a season. Pre-snap penalties got to go away. Non-negotiable. Pass protection, I'm not worried about him going against bull rushes in pass protection. I'm worried about speed. Guys coming around the edge who can bend, right? That's when Elijah Pritchett gets in trouble. I'm a little bit worried about his footwork and his emotional discipline. By the end of the day with Elijah Pritchett, if we're talking about pure raw talent, okay, you get everything out of the equation, pure raw talent, nobody could touch him on this roster on the offensive line. Like, he is the most talented offensive lineman on the team. Does that mean he's going to be the best offensive lineman on the team? No. Talent does not mean you're actually good, right? It means you have the traits to be good, but it doesn't mean you're actually good. But if he can be developed to high level, if you trust Jeep Wade, yes, maybe the first round, second round pick, it's not crazy. It's not, I'd still say it's a little crazy, but it's not just out of this world. It could happen, but Elijah Pritchett, he has to prove that he's consistent for the first time in his entire career. Let's go to the other tackle spot, and we'll move inward. You have Tree Babalati, who's transferring in from South Carolina, who I believe is also a little bit of a question mark for the Huskers. He earns a grade of a 82. He's played in 22 games, started 15 of them. It's kind of the anti-Elijah Pritchett in a way. We're both, have great length, about 6'5". Tree Babalati has a little bit more bad weight on him, about 330 at this point in time. But what's different about Tree Babalati, he's great in pass protection. Like, objectively, one of the better pass protector offensive linemen in the portal. Nebraska paid pretty penny for him. Has pretty good footwork, great anchor, great versatility. You can play a little bit guard as well, along with his height. But the opposite of Elijah Pritchett, you have to be concerned a little bit about Tree Babalati from a running standpoint. He was not good at run blocking. Not great run blocking film at all. Not awesome in the second level, right? Kind of has late hands experience. It's good, not great. It's one thing to have experience. I think sometimes it gets a little bit overstated. You want your guys to play, but you also want good experience. And Tree Babalati, let's just call it what it is. He was a part of the worst offensive line in power football last year. We had a bad offensive line. It was nothing compared to South Carolina. They were awful. So you're hoping with Tree he can learn from that, he can develop. I will say this around Tree. I expect him to get a lot better, but had kind of an underwhelming spring ball. Has some weight on him that I prefer to get off, but, somebody who definitely has just as much upside. And that maybe not as much, but very, very similar to Mr. Elijah Pritchett on the left side. Moving inward, Paul Benga at an 82 here for the Huskers, transfer from LSU. You see the injury symbol by his name because this is somebody who's dealt with a lot of injuries in his career at 6'5". So, played in 20 games, started 11 of them. Now, Paul Benga, another guy where pass protection, pretty solid. What I worried about when it comes to Paul Benga, can he survive 12 games in the Big Ten? Because he's never survived 12 games his entire career for the most part, starting football games. He is athletic, but he deals with ankle issues, knee injuries. That is something that you have to get worried about over the course of a year once again. And because of those issues, because of his lower body tendencies, he cannot run block at high level. So we're hoping that improves with Paul Benga. But I'll say this: the reason why he gets that also symbol, the upward symbol by his name, is because you could argue, had the best spring ball out of any offensive lineman on this team outside of Justin Evans. Like, he came on the scene, he impressed everybody. A lot better than what I was expecting. I expected there to be a real battle at left guard. There's not going to be a battle, unless there's injuries. Like, Paul Benga's pretty much wrapped up that spot. You love his experience, but just got to improve the run blocking, and that's the bottom line. The right guard for the Huskers, transfer from Iowa State, is Brandon Black at 6'4", 320 pounds. He has played in 36, started 32 of them, earning himself a grade of an 80. Now, that is the lowest within Nebraska's offensive line, at least from a starting standpoint. Again, the reason why I don't want to say he's a liability, because I don't believe Brandon Black's a liability. I would say he has pretty easily the lowest upside after any offensive line on this team. He has the lowest upside out of any starting offensive line on this team, but he has the highest floor. Okay, meaning he's kind of like a Rocco Spindler. You know you're getting from Brandon Black. He's not going to be a first-round pick. He's not going to be a second-round pick, but he's going to be pretty darn serviceable. He's not going to be great. There will be games for Brandon Black where he gives up sacks. Like, his Pro Football Focus grades last year, they were not great. They weren't bad, but they weren't great. I mean, pretty much averaged around 65, which is pretty middle of the pack. But so Brandon Black, he's just kind of a Rocco Spindler. You hope he's a little bit of an upgrade. Saw him run block, saw him pass pro, nothing that blows you away. Not crazy athletic, right? Some of these other guys, but somebody hopefully just does his job and starts all 12 games. You just don't have to hear his name called that much. And then before we get to the depth, we have our second member of the 90-plus club on Nebraska's roster. This is senior center, wearing number 51, Justin Evans. Now, started these past couple seasons for Nebraska, started 33 games and 38 appearances, earning him a grade of a 93. I mean, Justin Evans is a complete rock, and this is what we're so glad to have here. Again, last season for Nebraska, he only gave one sack, only 6 pressures on the year. Again, a little bit undersized, only about 6'2", 320 pounds, but as much good experience as you're ever going to see. He's already been ranked as a top 10 center in America. He has positional versatility where, you could theoretically put him at guard because he started there before. Improve his pass protection, improve his footwork. Again, he's a great finisher. He finishes blocks. He can get down the second level. He's great IQ. He's a great leader. Only issue I have with Justin Evans from time to time, yes, size, not great, but it's not a big deal. At times, we have an offensive line that crumbles in short yardage situations, right? We have an offensive line that when we get to a 4th down and 1 or a red zone situation, the offensive line falls apart. Some of that's because of the center. So hopefully, I don't want to give him all the blame. It's kind of unfair to me, but yes, this is an offensive line that in the past has not been great short yardage. And I'd say with run blocking, it's good, not great. His pass pro is great. Run blocking, hopefully that's great this year. But Justin Evans, we're just so blessed to have a center of his caliber on this roster. And then you get to the backups here on the offensive line for the Huskers. We always say, the starting lineup's cool, but you need to be about 10 deep because injuries strike everywhere, especially when you get to November. And the issue for Nebraska is this. The reason why we always stink in November is because there are injuries and we have no depth to replace those guys. Could this be the year we finally have depth on the offensive line? It remains to be seen. Well, let's go left to right on this one. All right, well, actually, let's do it again. Let's go tackles, guard, center. Kalamapuma and Gunnar Gatula right now are the projected swing tackles off the bench. Gunnar Gatula being the primary, Kalamapuma number 2. Gunnar Gatula right off the bat, he was bad last year. Let's not sugarcoat it. He was very, very, very questionable. Gave it 4 sacks against Minnesota. He got benched. He got injured. Was out for all spring ball for Nebraska. So with him, it's about reversing the narrative. The spotlight is off Gunnar Gatula. Nobody is expecting anything from him this year. He's only going to come in the ball game if there's an injury or in garbage time situations. Let's hope he takes advantage of it, develops a Jeep way, and he comes back better. Because there have been times with offensive linemen where they get benched and the limeline's off them and they crumble. Teddy was that way. Corcoran was that way. We cannot have that from Gunnar Gatula. I am worried about him as our swing tackle with his history. The other tackle who right now was reported running with the 2s in spring ball is Kalamapuma. Now, I'm of the belief that maybe by the time we get into the season, he won't be part of the 2s. He'll probably go to the 3s. Kalamapuma is as talented as he gets. He is up there with Pritchett, up there with Trevor Bellotti from a pure talent perspective. He listed about 6'7", 6'8", 340 pounds at the All-American Bowl, top 20 offensive lineman in America. But the thing around Kalamapuma is this. He's only been playing football for 3 years. So that kind of tells you a lot that you have somebody with size, with athleticism, but this dude does not really know how to play the game from a technique, footwork, hands. It's all not great. Pass pro, not very good. So I know why G Boy is doing this. G Boy is putting on the 2 deep, kind of throw him in the fire because he believes it's going to be better for him long term. I'm not going to disagree with him, but I'd say that's definitely concerning. And Clellan Puma is playing legit snaps against Ohio State. Oh my goodness. Yeah, let's hope Anthony Colander's praying before he snaps football because it's going to get really, really ugly really, really quick. Then you go to our backup guards. President Mo is like the only backup offensive line on this team I truly believe in. You know, he's the highest rated one we have at 76. Only played in 2 games in his collegiate career, but he's a 4-star recruit out of Hawaii, number 1 player of that state at that point in time. Again, he has the athleticism you want, has the size you want, it has positional versatility at center, guard, and tackle. You know, really, really good from a run blocking standpoint. It always comes down to his pass pro, but he's finally ready to break out. It's going to be a big year for Preston Moa. Tyler Knack, again, he's somebody who could play tackle. I think he'll actually slide to guard this year for the Huskers at 6'4", 320. Again, not bad, playing a handful of ball games for Nebraska over his career. You know, kind of, he's playing a lot, especially garbage time, but he has some severe athletic limitations. We'll put it at that. If Tyler Knack is playing significant snaps to big time ball games, that should concern you. The same way it concerns you around Clellan Puma or Gunnar Tula. And then last but not least, Sam Sledge, our backup center. Only played in 11 games. I'm not going to lie, from Sam Sledge's spring game performance, I am nervous about him. Very, very nervous. If Justin Evans ever gets injured, we're in a bad spot because Sam Sledge in the bowl game, in the spring game, first off, couldn't complete a snap to save his life. Couldn't now run block to save his life. It was bad. So some guys, you kind of know if you got it or you don't got it. Sam Sledge in year 4. If you're not starting in year 4, you probably don't got it. And that's the bottom line. As for the other depth pieces on Nebraska's offensive line, you got Gibson Pyle, who Huskers believe could be in the mix to be a swing tackle, earning him a grade of a 71. You got Brock Knutson, who played a little bit in spring ball. He's not bad. Hayne Ainsworth is in the mix as a 17-year-old true freshman, super high upside, but it's going to take some time with him. He probably won't play a whole lot this year. Sean Hemmerbeck, 4-star in his second year at South Dakota. Again, not bad, right? But it's going to probably take another year. Grant Bricks, he's in his 3rd year for Nebraska. This is one who I'm just going to call it what it is on bus watch, right? He has been running with the 3s all summer long. He's not even part of this 2s. He's not even competing for the 2s. It's tough when you're an offensive lineman coming from Iowa and you never pass blocked in your entire career, and you had an offensive line coach last year who never practiced pass blocking, but Grant Bricks is a very, very far ways away. Let's put it at that. Other offensive linemen just kind of rolling over them. Again, you got a bunch of walk-ons here and there. You got Jake Peters, who's had some injury issues. Ashton Murphy's on the offensive line now. Rex Waterman, true freshman, who, it's going to take a lot of time for him, and that's really about it. Final stuff here with the offensive line, about 7th in the Big Ten from what we're seeing from Phil, still a couple other sites. 22nd in America, again, a lot of hype because of the fact that they have the 5th most experience in the country, along with 6 4-star and 5-star guys. But because of the lack of depth, I only give them a grade of a B because, again, it's one thing to have a great starting lineup, but the depth is what concerns me with Nebraska's O-line. Okay, that's the offense for Nebraska. Not bad. Here is a look at the starting lineup for the Huskers, what you can expect potentially versus Ohio in the first game of the year. You got Anthony Colandrea at quarterback, who once again gunslinger with some turnover issues, but will electrify this team. You have Isaiah Mozee, who is a complete running back with size, with speed, and catch the football. You have objectively one of the better receiver rooms we've had on paper in a while. Offensive line with a lot of experience, Luke Lindenmeyer, blocking tight end, and Aiden Holgerson, who was one of the bigger names in the sport. I do give this rushing offense a grade of an 80, which is tremendously low because of the running back concerns, but it's not just that. It's Dana Holgerson, his lack of utilizing the running game, and also the offensive line core that has some run blocking issues. So I don't give him a whole great grade from a run standpoint, although Anthony Colandrea is a mobile quarterback. However, from a passing standpoint, that's where you see a burst, a grade of a 90, just because Isaiah Mozee, pass first back. Receiver room is talented. This is an offensive line that's gravitated for the pass pro, and Holgerson wants to air the football. So for that reason, it's kind of a one-sided offense in a way. They are going to run the football at a high level, right? Hopefully. They're going to run the football a lot. It's not going to be an air raid offense by any means, but definitely, you're asking what's going to be better, it will definitely be the passing attack. At least it should be theoretically. Okay, that's the offense for Nebraska. Now it's time to get into the black shirt for the Huskers, starting off with the defensive line for Nebraska in year 4 of Matt Rhule. Now, this is a defensive line, I'm not going to sugarcoat things, was the worst in the history of the program last year. You can look hard and you can look wide. You will never find a defensive line worse than what we saw last season from a pass rush standpoint, from a run stopping standpoint. They cannot force turnovers. They didn't even know the responsibilities. They had no gap discipline. It was bad. So we fired John Butler, fired Terry Braden. that is automatically an instant upgrade on the defensive line. But I mean, you did lose some talent. Keelan Davis, I think, was really the only big loss in the defensive line. He was as talented as anybody on that unit. And although it was a defensive line that wasn't good last year, you could make a very strong argument he was the best one we had. He was better than Cam Lenhart for sure, better than a couple other guys. So you lose him. I think it tells you everything you know that he went to Miami. Miami's a great program. They wanted him. So you lose those guys along with Elijah Judy graduated. He was not good. And Jalen George, who barely played, he was not good. And now you bring in, a lot of experience. Jasir Whittington, who he's the one who does lack experience, but he has the upside, right? And we'll talk about him in a second. Owen Studemeyer, who is a graduate in his 6th year coming in from Boston College. Anthony Jones in his 5th year, his 5th school in 5 seasons. And of course, 4-star blue chip recruit Dylan Berrymont, who's joining the team this summer. So for this reason, again, you really just lose one player of value. You bring in 3 guys who've actually started real football games along with Corey Brown. I don't even think it's particularly close. I do give it a slight upgrade. It's not a huge upgrade, not an upgrade just because there are some talent concerns. But definitely an upgrade. It's not even debatable. It's not a downgrade. It's not neutral. And that's that. But now let's get into the defensive line specifically, player by player. Here is who I expect to start for the Huskers on the defensive line. Now, I want to make this abundantly clear. It's not like the offensive line where there's going to be a clear 4 starters who are going to play the majority of the snaps. This is a defensive line that will rotate. So we're going to go about 8 deep. There will be 4 edge rushers who play and 4 defensive tackles who play. So I just want to prepare you for that. But these are the guys, if you ask me who's going to get the majority of the snaps at all the positions, it's these 4. Let's start off with the edge rushers. You have Anthony Jones, who I believe is he is the most experienced defensive lineman of this team, but that should scare you a little bit with Anthony Jones. That should scare you. I'm not gonna lie. With Anthony Jones coming in from UCLA, again, his 5th school in 5 years. He was at Indiana. He was at Oregon. He was at Michigan State. He was at UCLA, and now at Nebraska. Of course, last season had 1.5 sacks, 20 tackles. He started the majority of the season for the Bruins. Now he actually led the Bruins in sacks despite not having too many. Again, 6'5", about 270 pounds with Anthony Jones. Now, the thing about Anthony Jones is this. I'm a little bit scared about this. He is a really, really decent edge rusher, but that's all he is. He's decent. He is somebody who you feel comfortable getting 20, 25 snaps a game. Once you start to ask him to do more on that and get 35, 40 snaps a game, that's where it's a little bit questionable. Anthony Jones is a really good rotational pass rusher. Is he a every down type of edge rusher? Probably not. He has height. He has twitch. He has versatility. He frankly has athleticism that he maybe hasn't lived up to in his career. And he's an experienced leader. But I'll say this right, Anthony Jones, the statistics never back up the stuff you see in practice. He was one of the stands that we had in spring ball. I mean, that's great, but you actually got to see it on Saturdays because he never actually shows that when you get to real game days. The fact of the matter is this. He's not great in the run game, doesn't set a strong edge. Pass rush, he can get to the quarterback, but he just doesn't come down with sacks. Kind of similar to Williams-Nary. Like, he gets in the backfield, but there's not a whole lot of sacks behind his name. He does not have a whole lot of production, and he's a master of none. He's a jack of all trades, does everything pretty well, but it's just nothing that you could hang your hat on when it comes to Anthony Jones. I mean, good upside, not great upside. Great twitch, not great twitch. I mean, he's good twitch, not great twitch. Decent pass rush, but I mean, you like it to be better, right? I mean, run stopping, maybe I'm too harsh on the run stopping, but it's just not elite. There's hopefully Anthony Jones with his last year can come in here with an NFL veteran mentality and prove some people wrong, prove that this is the year that he finally breaks out. As for the other edge rusher who I expect to be a starter, or at least get the majority of the snaps on this team, I don't even think it's close. I think it's Williams-Nary. Listen, Williams-Nary is the most talented defensive line on the squad. It's not even particularly close. It's not close at all. One of the only 5-stars we have at 6'7", 30 year, 270 pounds. Now, when Nary had a disappointing campaign last season, only 27 tackles, 2.5 sacks. I mean, there were 2 weeks in here against Michigan State and Maryland where on back-to-back Saturdays, he led America in pressures. And then after that, when we got to the back half of the season, I mean, when Nary was on a milk carton, barely got tackles, didn't get any sacks. He could not stop the run to save his life. Nary is super talented. And this is why I think it's going to start, because again, there's just not anybody who's even close to him when it comes to speed, height, play strength, motor. He has the most natural pass rush ability, with a lot of tricks in his bag. He's agile, has potential. But when it comes down to Nary, this is the number one non-negotiable thing. You need to set an edge. You need to be physical at the 5 tech, 6 tech spot, because if there is a running back, roll through the C gap and trying to get out wide, you need to stop for a loss. And Nary at times could not block shed to save his life. The technique was not great. The consistency was not great. So Nary, we've heard the hype around Roy Manning and Corey Brown being these great developers. Here is where you prove yourself. Here's where you prove that, yes, we can actually take somebody who does have a lot of talent and make it better. Let's see, man. Huge year for Williams-Neri, and he earns a grade of an 82. As for the nose tackles and the defensive tackles for the Huskers, I'm going to get to Jacory Whittington, who right now is the highest rated defensive lineman on the team. I'm kind of outspoken about that this offseason. I do believe he's the best we have. And he absolutely lacks experience. Again, only had 12 tackles last year for Pitt, started the end of the season. But the reason why I believe, Jacory Whittington at least is our best defensive tackle is this. First off, four-star recruit, blue chip out of Pennsylvania. He has great film at the end of the season. He is the only defensive tackle on our team who I feel comfortable getting to the quarterback at a very, very high level. He is the most athletic defensive tackle on the team. He plays with great leverage, play strength, motor, pass rush, agility, and he's a straight-up leader. So the film is better than what the stats indicate when it comes to this year. And I remember when we landed him from Pitt, Pitt fans were freaking out because they want this guy to stay. They knew if he stayed, he was going to be their day one star defensive tackle. Now he's at Nebraska. I don't even think it's particularly close. He's the best one we have. There are some issues with him, though. He's undersized. I mean, he just is, right? He is not an up-the-bus guy. He is 6 foot tall, 5'11" on a good day, and he's listed about 280 pounds. Like, he's not big. Run stopping can definitely get better. He is a true pass rusher, but with his lack of size, you don't feel as comfortable with him, block shedding 2 or 3 guys with a triple-double team, especially when they run through the A-gap, right? Not super consistent, doesn't have a whole lot of experience, and, you could argue maybe his ceiling's not through the roof compared to like a Williams-Neri or an Anthony Jones. So that's just Jacory Whittington. But then you have his counterpart, defensive tackle / nose tackle, who is a single-digit player, which means a lot for Nebraska, Riley Van Poppel. Now, I'm at the point with Van Poppel where I'm not going to lie with you. I mean, yes, I do think he's going to start for Nebraska, but I don't know if that's because he's the best. I think that's because they're going to give it to him because of that single digit, because supposedly he's a great practice player. But Riley Van Poppel was bad last year. I mean, he just was, right? 16 tackles, 1.5 sacks. I mean, there were plays against Iowa last year where you're watching Van Poppel get pushed back 5-10 yards every single snap from a 300-pounder. That's unacceptable. As a single-digit player, that's unacceptable. Van Poppel only started like 3 or 4 games. I mean, he didn't start really the majority of the games at all. So it's a big year for Van Poppel to finally live up to his billing. Again, he has great size. He stays healthy for the most part. I think he's a decent block share from a run blocking standpoint, IQ. But when it comes to him, from an explosive standpoint, not there. He lacks the athleticism that you once saw in high school. Does not play with great leverage. Doesn't have a whole lot of production. He cannot get to the quarterback, and when he does get to the quarterback, he never brings him down. And just not super versatile. So Van Poppel, I mean, all I ask from this year is to be a solid 15 snap a game type of guy. Okay. That's all I want from him. Be a nice run-stopping, first down, second down defensive lineman, but he's definitely not a third down type of guy. Like, you take him off the field on third down, you put in a Tyson Terror, you put him a K Petchock inside. That's what I would like them to do. But Van Poppel, big year to prove that he is worthy of the billing of being a single-digit guy. But you look at the depth on the defensive line. Very, very important because, again, we're going to rotate about 7 or 8 per game. Let's start with the edge rushers. You have Cameron Ledhart and Cade Petchock on both sides here. Now, Cameron Ledhart, of course, wearing number 11, former 4-star out of IMG Academy, originally out of the East Coast. Now, again, listed at 6'3", 270 pounds, 23 tackles last year and 2 sacks, earning him a grade of a 79. Listen, I mean, Cameron Ledhart, it's been every single year. You hear the talk. When is he going to break out? Is this going to be the year? Is this going to be the year? And it never turns out to be the year. Now, I don't know what Cam Ledhart is doing in practice, and he might be Reggie White in practice for all I know. But what I do know is on Saturdays, this man does not show up consistently, at least not to the way the coaching staff talks about him. If Cam Ledhart gets 10 snaps a game and doesn't show up, it is what it is. But the fact of the matter is, Cam Ledhart has started the past 3 seasons. In every single game, he's getting 1 tackle, 2 tackles. He is never getting sacks, never getting to the quarterback. He never grades out well Pro Football Focus. He never actually is an impact player. We need Cam Ledhart to change that this year. Now, the reason why I think he's a part of the 2 deep right now is because straight up Anthony Jones has better stats and was better in spring ball, and Wineri has more upside. And at this point, I have faith that Roy Manning is not going to start you just because you started here the past couple of years. But with Cam Ledhart, I mean, it's a bigger to prove people wrong. I need him to be a difference maker. If you're going to start, if you're going to get 25 snaps a game, you got to have something that you're good at. He's good at really, he's okay at some things, right? He's a decent block shedder. He's versatility. But this is somebody who does not have a lot of tricks in his bag when it comes to pass rushing. He cannot force turnovers at a high level. He's not a hard hitter. He's not a secure tackler. What can Cam Ledhart do well? We don't know. So we need to see it this year. We need to see something because he's going to play. I don't know if he's going to start, but he's going to play. Man, it's got to be a big year with Cam Ledhart, Mr. Milkman, as we like to say. Then on the other side, you got Cade Petchuk entering his second year. Had a surprising season with 2 sacks, 17 tackles as a true freshman, 6'5", 270. Now, Cade Petchuk played a lot less than Cameron Lenhart, for example, and had pretty much a very similar stat line. So it kind of tells you everything you need to know. But Cade Petchuk, he was a 4-star out of North Dakota. Really high upside. I like him more so in the interior. We'll see if they put him there, but he's somebody who's a great block shedder, great motor, plays with phenomenal leverage. He can get to the quarterback, had a nice safety last year against Akron. The only issue I have with Cade Petchuk is this. At times, we have a bad tendency with edge rushers, especially in the second year, really the whole defensive line. We have a bad tendency when players enter their second year, they show no development. They don't get any better. And I'm praying that doesn't happen with Cade Petchuk. Or again, Tyson Terry, or excuse me, not Tyson Terry, with Cameron Lenhart did not get better second year. Brian Pubble did not get better second year. You could argue Winery got a little better, but that was about it. We need true development of Cade Petchuk to prove that, yes, he's on an upward trajectory, that he's going to live up to his billing. So we need to see that because a lot of guys go on sophomore slumps. As for the backup tackles, I got Sulifoe, who had a nice spring ball, a lot of injury issues with him. He's been injured every single year of his career, but true Polynesian guy with a phenomenal explosiveness, but it's just about him staying healthy. But he can plug some lanes with the running game, no question about it. And then you got Owen Studemeyer coming in from Boston College. He earns himself a grade of an 80. Somebody's dealt with injuries his entire career. I'll just put it at that, right? His best season was in 2024, racked about 30 tackles. Last year, missed the majority of the season. Missed the majority of the season in 2023. Missed the majority of the season in 2022. So I know what it's going to be. He's going to be a solid run stopper, nothing more, nothing less. He's not going to be great in the pass rush department, not super big, not super speedy. I just need him to stay healthy. That's the bottom line. If he gets hurt, then you're relying on a defensive line depth that really gets questionable. Okay, as for the rest of the depth on the defensive line, you got Tyson Terry, who, has some injury concerns of coming off an ACL tear, but had a nice spring ball, 4-time All-State champion wrestler in Nebraska, good 4-star guy. Let's see what he can do in a second year. Gabe Moore, could be a big breakout year for Gilmer. Also some injury issues around him, but as talented, as big as anybody in this room, who played a lot last year. He didn't even know play calls last year. He played at a pretty high level. Or I shouldn't say the high level, but he plays as well as anybody on a pretty bad defensive line. Malcolm Simpson, dealing with some injuries, but another 4-star to Hitchcock, Texas in the second year. And also got Dylan Berrym on defensive tackle, who certainly has talent, 6 foot, about 6'1", 340 pounds, but we'll see what he can do against Dylan on campus for a couple months. But certainly let's see if he can get things going with his ability. Overall, with Nebraska's defensive line, ranks 11th in the Big Ten according to Phil, so which I think is a little bit inflated with the lack of experience, but it is what it is. They can believe in the talent that we have. Nationally, about 37th again, according to Phil Steele. Returning production, 47th, so not as maybe bad as what some people thought. And 9 total 4-stars. Now, if you're keeping track at home, that is the most of any positional group on the team so far. Like, this unit has 4-star after 4-star and 4-star. So it's not like they lack talent. They got talent. They got talent. Again, Cam Leonard, 4-star. Cade Petchuk, 4-star. Starting lineup was full of 4-stars. It's about these guys actually showing up on Saturdays and showing real development. And that's what it comes down to with the defensive line. But they earn a grade of a D+. Okay, now getting to the linebackers here for the Huskers. Now, this is a unit that we expect big things from. That's really the bottom line. You have a whole different unit this year. You lose to Sal McCullough, who really didn't break out, was a big-time recruit, but didn't really live up to, kind of what we thought he was going to. You lose Marcus Walden-Trent, who was one of the more productive players in America coming in from Georgia Southern, also didn't live up to expectations. You lose Buda Whitehead, who had a pretty good 7-year career with the Huskers. So you lose a lot of experience, a lot of talent, but they heavily addressed that in the portal. You bring in Owen Chambliss, who was a 4-star transfer out of San Diego State, followed, of course, Rob Borch. He's a stud who we'll talk about in a second. You have Dexter Foster, a lot of experience at Oregon State. You have Will Hawthorne, who's a former 4-star All-American coming out of Gilbert, Iowa, has 4 years of eligibility remaining. So is this maybe a huge upgrade? Maybe not, right? Because, again, you lose 3 guys with talent experience, but it is an upgrade, no question about it. Not only because of the talent, but because of the depth pieces getting older, getting more experience, and you bring in Rob Borch, who's done a great job with the linebackers throughout his entire career. Talking about the linebackers specifically, here are the projected stars for the Huskers in a 4-2-5. So gone are the days of us having a jack linebacker. We have 2 linebackers, primarily the Mike and the Will. We will have a Sam in certain packages, but for the majority of it, it will be a Mike and it will be a Will. And these 2 starters, Dexter Foster and Owen Chambliss. Now, Owen Chambliss is another member of the 90-plus club here for Nebraska. Of course, at 6'3", 240 pounds, had about 100 tackles last year for the Aztecs, 4 sacks. Now, Owen Chambliss is somebody where he checks a lot of boxes, checks a lot of boxes when you watch him on film. He has great size. Again, 6'3", 6'4". He's one of the best natural pass coverage linebackers we've had in years. I can say that very confidently, in years. He's a true jack of all trades, but he's a master of something. Again, he's a master of pass coverage. He's versatile. He has great IQ, phenomenal athleticism, right? Phenomenal length when it comes to tackling, right? Great play recognition, quickness, and experience. The only issue I have around Owen Chambliss are as such. I mean, block shedding could get a little bit better. He's a secure tackler, not really a thumper. Has some pass rush limitations. Really the only times he gets sacks is when Rob Orch, schemes him up to, get unblocked to go to the quarterback. But the main thing that I'm worried about when it comes to him is this. Owen Chambliss is phenomenal when it comes to pass coverage, really run stopping. He is a great, great, great secure tackler, smart. He's the eyes of the entire defense. But when you talk about linebacker specifically, you have to talk about the power forward jump. He has played San Diego State football. A little bit different when you go to Nebraska in the Big Ten. A little bit different, way different. And we have seen linebackers here, cough, cough, Marcus Watson-Trent, who make that similar adjustment, and they don't thrive at all. And they are, I don't want to say bust, but they just don't live up to expectations. Now, Owen Chambliss has more size, speed, athleticism than Marcus Watson-Trent, but it definitely deserves to be brought up. So I am worried about the power forward jump. I am a little bit worried about his turf toe as well. Now, he suffered a turf toe in spring ball. We do believe it's gone at this point in time. He actually contacted me personally. So, Wilson, turf toe is gone. It should be out of the way. So we're hoping that doesn't persist, but definitely something that it's in the back of your mind because the turf toes, if they come back, they will linger the entire year. But Owen Chambliss, again, simply put, he's one of the best linebackers we've had in a long time with his experience at San Diego State. Then you have Dexter Foster at the wheel spot, rocking number 24, junior backer at 6'3", also 240 pounds with 52 tackles last year for the Beavers, 1 PBU. Now, Dexter Foster, he led Oregon State in tackles, assisted tackles, all these statistics. Of course, we know he blew out his knee in the back half of the year. He would have had a very similar stat line to Owen Chambliss, but he earns a grade of an 84. I mean, there's a lot to like around Dexter Foster. He had a great spring ball. He didn't play in the spring game due to a minor injury, but he'll be perfectly fine by fall ball. He has athleticism you want. Similar to Owen Chambliss, great in run stopping, versatile. So again, you like him at will, but he can play Mike. Great in changing direction, which you need from a linebacker, athleticism and strong length against 6'3". The only things that I'm kind of worried about when it comes to Dexter, pass coverage. Not awesome in pass coverage at all. Really it lacks a lot of experience in pass coverage, particularly zone. We need all of our linebackers to be cross-trained and to be able to, guard tight ends one-on-one, but also have zone coverage and cover 2, cover 3, and whatnot. Injuries, the fact that he did get injured last year, Oregon State got injured in spring ball, it's in the back of your mind. Absolutely. That's why he has the injury tag. And also, at times, Dexter Foster can be over-aggressive in running lanes. Again, he'll run through a running lane too early, or that's not there, and he'll leave for a big gain from a back. But Dexter Foster, people will ask, hey, why is he above Vince Shavers? It's simply put, he had a better spring ball. He had a better season last year. And we are not starting you just because you've started here the past 2 years. Competent programs, your job's open every single season. And the job's open right now. It's a big battle, him and Vince Shavers. We'll see what happens. But right now, Dexter Foster has the very, very clear advantage. As for the depth pieces within Nebraska's linebacker room, again, this is another unit that's going to go deep. We're going to go about 4 or 5 deep pretty consistently. Rob Orch likes to rotate his guys. Vince Shavers, just because he's not starting does not mean he's not going to play. He will play a significant amount of the snaps. Again, versatile. He can play Mike. He can play Will. You prefer him at Will, but he's just going to be the first guy on the bench. So if Owen's going to miss some snaps, you're going to put in Vincent. Or if Dexter's going to miss some snaps, you're going to put in Vincent still. Again, Liz at 6'1", 230, so a little bit smaller than these other guys. Had 61 total tackles last year, played the majority of the season. Did have some injury issues and had some injuries issues in the spring as well. But, the thing around Vince Shavers is this. Didn't really have the year that people expected. Again, I understand he had a hamstring injury. I understand he had a club on his right hand, but the disappointing things are on Vincent. We know he has great potential. We know that from a tackling standpoint, he's pretty pinpoint, but he was missing tackles last year, left and right. Closing speed's good. Athleticism is good. He can lay the boom more so than Dexter Foster and an Owen Chambliss. He can actually impose fear, on opposing offenses. He's a big playmaker, as they say. Thing around Vince Shavers is such. Last year, what you saw limited progression in pass coverage. You saw his size. Again, he's just not super big at 6'1". You saw injuries crop up, and you saw gap discipline. Very similar to Dexter Foster. The gap discipline was worse from Vincent's standpoint. He was running through gaps that weren't there, or at times he was just missing gaps in wide open space. Vince Shavers needs to progress. I think he will, because Rob Orch, he is the linebacker whisperer, but it definitely is something that needs to be brought up because you saw limited development with somebody with super high upside. Then at our other will spot, I'm going to give that nod over here to Dawson Merritt, entering a second year, former 4-star recruit. Absolutely a huge wild card. Another guy with injury issues who missed spring ball for the second consecutive year. But had 8 tackles last year at 6'3", 230 pounds. He's just one of those guys who's so talented, you gotta play him. You gotta play him. I would argue Dawson Merritt, from a pure talent standpoint, is the most talented within the linebacker room because he's the only guy who's a borderline 5-star. He has the best pass rush package of any outside backer, but he also has great pass coverage skills, again, pass coverage and pass rush, but also is decent from a tackling standpoint. He's pulling tremendous weight. I'm worried about his injuries. I'm worried about him not actually practicing because he's always banged up, but just one of those guys you got to put out there and kind of deal with the consequences. You hope that he develops while actually playing live game reps. And I expect to have a big year, by the way, again, with Rob Orch and Rob Dvorak, the Rob brothers, as we like to say. Okay, as for the rest of the linebackers here, again, you got Will Hawthorne, who will definitely play a lot for the Huskers too, particularly on special teams. He could play a little bit of Mike and Will. Very athletic, again, coming in from Gilbert, Iowa, right? 4 years of eligibility remaining. Former All-American 4-star track athlete. He can do pretty much a little bit of everything, but it's a loaded linebacker room. It's going to be tough for him to play. You got Dylan Rogers, who played a little bit pretty good down the stretch last year. Secure tackler, not super athletic compared to the other guys, but I mean, he does his job. Christian Jones, he's a year away. I mean, he just struggles with kind of the IQ. Struggles with learning Big Ten offenses, being the right place at the right time. It's been that way since high school. Pierce Newberry, I'd also argue he's a year away. Now, there might be a couple packages where he's in the ball game, but particularly from these former 4-stars, him and Christian, they need to find themselves a niche on this team. Whether it's special teams, being a gunner, going down the field, letting the boom on the opposing return man, they got to find a niche where they thrive. You have Derek Walker, former walk-on coming at UTAN, one of the standouts of the spring game. He led the spring game in tackles, and he's pretty good, pretty stout. Again, does not have speed at all. Does not have a whole lot of size, but somebody's going to continue to progress throughout his career. And heck, he'll play some snaps on defense this season. He'll be one of the standouts of special teams as well. And you got Gage Stenger, who's come back from injury, get tore his ACL last year. We're hoping he's ready to go. Another special teams contributor for the Huskers at linebacker. Overall, with this unit, I believe it's one of the best on this team. Ranks 6th in the Big Ten, 24th nationally, top 30 in returning production, and 5 total 4-stars on this squad, giving it a grade of an A- for Nebraska's linebackers. To wrap up Nebraska's defense, we have a unit that many consider to be the best on this team. Of course, was top 5 in America last year, and passing yards given up per game, none other than Nebraska's secondary. Now, this is a secondary that is very well coached. One of the best secondary coaches in America, and Ass Williams. You bring in Tyler Yelk, you bring in, of course, Rob Orch, who's great in that department as well, but you lose a lot of talent. For that reason, neutral at both corner and at safety. Starting off at corner, you lose to your right, who was phenomenal last year for Nebraska. And he was undrafted, but he should have not been undrafted, right? Of course, was picked up by the Bengals. And pound for pound, corner profile focus, he was one of the best corners in America. You also lose Malcolm Hartzog, who only played a little bit, again, had that big pick against Cincinnati, but was out for the rest of the season with injury. You lose Bryce Turner, who was, kind of a nothing burger. You lose him to Houston Christian. And you replace those guys with Victor Evans III coming in from FIU. A lot of experience, but definitely a big jump from him. And 5-star recruit Danny Odom, who we're about to talk about. So for that reason, you replace your right with Victor Evans, a little bit of a downgrade there. You bring in Danny Odom, who's an upgrade from Malcolm Hartzog, but I'm definitely neutral there because, again, lacks a little bit of experience compared to what we had last year and a little bit of question. So neutral, not downgrade, not upgrade, but pretty much stays the same. As for safety, kind of the same way. You lose to Shawn Singleton, a lot of experience. I think he, got kind of a bad rap for last year. He was one of our better players. If anything, he was a top 5 player on the roster, really excelled at the end of the season. Again, him and Sierra Wright were stable as the secondary. They're the reason why it was a top 5 unit in America. You lose him. You lose Marcus Buford, who is not a loss really at all. He got benched that last season. And you bring in Dwayne McDougal, who Dwayne, I'd say, is a little bit of a downgrade from Shawn Singleton. Again, super experienced, right? But lacks a little bit of that athletic upsides we're about to discuss. And you bring in Jason Shakes, who's certainly an upgrade from Marcus Buford coming in from Towson, but once again, a huge jump from FCS to the Big Ten for that reason. Both units stay neutral in Nebraska's secondary. But actually, getting to Nebraska secondary, here's what we're working with the starting lineup. Now, let's start off with the corners. Then we'll go nickel, and then we'll go safeties. Now, let's go to the corners here for the Huskers. Now, we have another member of the 90-plus club, that, of course, being Andrew Marshall, senior, wearing number 10, but going to be in the mix to get a single digit. I expect to be in the mix to be potentially all Big Ten. It's going to be a high NFL draft pick. Listen, Andrew Marshall was stout at the end of the season last year. He didn't get enough credit for how great he was. He's somebody who is very, very quick, right? I wouldn't say he has great top-end speed. It's fine top-end speed. It's not great, but he's quick. He's quick in space, great ball skills. He had 45 total tackles, 1 interception. He's a great open field tackler, which he does not get enough credit for. He's phenomenal zone coverage, great IQ. I mean, there's just a lot of boxes that Andrew Marshall checks. There's really not a whole lot of cons. I mean, yeah, it needs to improve the man coverage. Sometimes the tackling angles. I am a little bit worried about Andrew Marshall when it comes to the jump from quarter two to quarter one, because when you're corner two, you're not asked to do a whole lot. You're going up against some decent receivers, but when you're corner one, you're going up against the Jeremiah Smiths of the world, right? You're going up against the studs, the 5 stars, the future first round picks. A little bit of a different task. Some corners struggle with that. Some guys take it head on and succeed. So in Marshall, I think it's going to be a little bit of adjustment period, but at the end of the day, Power Five, one of the more talented corners we have on the roster. A lot of experience, a lot of great film behind his name, super technical in zone coverage, and somebody who's in the 90+ club, no question about it. On the other side of him, my projected starter is somebody who has the most experience at corner outside Andrew Marshall. This is Victor Evans the third. He is definitely a wild card coming in from FIU, of course, last season for the Panthers. He's at 6'1", 180 pounds, earning himself a rating of an 84 with 42 tackles, 1 interception. Victor Evans, really, really good film. Not great film, not elite film, really good film. I'd say very scrappy, which you expect from a Florida corner, right? Not great tackling technique, but somebody scrappy in coverage, decent in press coverage, decent in man zone, definitely needs some work. But at the end of the day, Victor Evans, you kind of know what you're getting from him. Yes, it's a big adjustment to Power 4 football, but it's more of a gamble putting out a Danny Ohm day one. Although he's a 5-star, that's a gamble. You never know going to get from a true freshman. Although Jeremiah Charles, who had a great spring, who we're about to talk about, he was great in spring. With his film and his track record and his lack of experience, that is a huge gamble. Addis Williams, at least in the past, has shown the ability, hey, I'm going to go to guys who are experienced, who I know can ball, and that's where you're getting with Victor Evans. Again, you can do a lot worse than Victor Evans. You can do a lot worse. You can do better than him, but you can do a lot worse. And I certainly don't expect him to be a liability for Nebraska this year. I expect him to be actually one of the better players within our secondary. So you have a really, really good corner lineup here for the top two, and it gets better with the depth. But let's go over to nickel. Now, nickel is an interesting scenario. They're in between putting Jameer Khan or Donovan Jones at nickel. You saw the spring game. Jameer was at free safety. Donovan was at nickel. But other spring practices, Donovan was at free safety and Jameer was at nickel. So again, they're in the period of finding out which was which. My guess, because of the fact that Donovan played nickel in the spring game, is that he's going to play nickel this season. But my preferred outcome is actually the opposite. I prefer Donovan at free safety and put Jameer at nickel. But it is what it is. When it comes to Donovan at nickel, listen, his tape last year left a lot to be desired. I'll put it at that, where you kind of expect a big breakout year after his bowl game performance in the Pinstripe Bowl. And he is a great tackler. He is versatile. You can put him at corner, free safety, strong safety, nickel. He's resilient. He has great motor, great in zone coverage. But I say tackling's a pro with Donovan. I say tackling's a con. There will be games with Donovan where he can't miss a tackle. He's laying the boom on dudes. But there's also games with him. You saw this versus Northwestern, Michigan State last season, where he can't tackle to save his life. I mean, the receivers or running backs, they're ragdoll him. He's taking poor angles. That needs to progress this year as a nickel cornerback. That's the bottom line. That's why I prefer him at free safety. Certain angles need to get better. Again, the man coverage needs to get better. And again, right now with him, he's kind of a master of none. What can you be a master of, Donovan? Well, let's see. I truly believe he's a better fit at free safety. He's better, he's better towards zone coverage, tackling in space rather than being a nickel, which, relies on, quick feet, and really man coverage. That's why I prefer Jameer there, but, we'll see what they do. Now, as for the safeties here for Nebraska, this is where the secondary starts to flex their muscles. You have two great players with phenomenal experience in Jameer Khan and DeWitt McDougal. Starting off with Jameer Khan, I could very, very, very well see a reality this year where not only is Jameer Khan the best player in the secondary, I could see a reality where Jameer Khan's the best player on the defense. And that might surprise you. You might say, Wilson, you're out of this world. Jameer Khan had that good of a spring ball. He was my spring ball MVP. Now, again, my spring ball MVP in 2024, Emma Johnson. My spring ball in 2025, Emma Johnson. My spring ball MVP 2026, Jameer Khan, because he was that guy. Every single, practice, it was Jameer Khan this, Jameer Khan that. Had a great spring game. I remember, again, I continue to bring up the story. I remember I talked to a former Nebraska DB this offseason. He told me, and I quote, Jameer Khan has the best technique you will ever see from a collegiate DB. You will be lucky you have him. Coming from somebody who was in practice with Jameer Khan. So for that reason, I prefer him at nickel because I think I know that some of his attributes are better suited toward nickel, and he has more experience playing nickel and corner than what he does free safety. But again, we'll see where they put him at. At the end of the day with Jameer Khan, I do expect him to be one of the better players on this team. He played great at the end of the season, played great in spring ball. Yes, lacks a little bit of Power 4 experience, but he was great with the Salukis down there at Southern Illinois. He has quickness. He has great footwork, quick hands, man covers, potential, great character. I'm just kind of worried about, him putting on some more weight. If he's going to be a safety, okay, let's get you up to about 190, 195, along with, some top-end speed in there. But Jameer Khan checks a lot of boxes, dude. He's going to be a stand-up for the Huskers, and that's not somebody you have to worry about at all. And then you have the other Safety at strong safety for Nebraska. This isn't even a battle. It's not a question. San Diego State transfer Dwayne McDougal. Now, Dwayne, I said at the beginning of the secondary unit that I believe he's a downgrade of Sean Singleton. Now, what makes it very clear, he is very similar to experience to Deshaun Singleton. A lot of starting experience, had great film last year at 6 foot tall, 210, 51 tackles, and 4 interceptions. Again, he's somebody who can lay the boom, right? Secure tackler, IQ. He's great in the box. You can put him at linebacker, run instincts, ball skills. But what I say this about, Dwayne McDougal, although he's a ball hawk and although he had a lot of interceptions last year, I'm worried about 2 things. Well, really one thing. Well, it's wrapped up in 2. I'm worried about the power 4 jump because, again, same thing with how Owen Chambliss. It's a little bit different when you go from Mount West football when you're playing to Big Ten football against, again, the Ohio States, Oregons, Indiana's of the world. That's number 1. Number 2 is this. Does he have the speed and size necessary for the Big Ten? Okay, similar with the jump. We saw a picture of him the other day when he was, posted up with, I believe, with, Andrew Marshall, and he looked about 5'11", 5'10" even. Is he actually 6 foot tall? Is he actually 210 pounds? Like, does he have the size needed? And I just don't know if he has the speed, to be completely honest with you, because you need legit speed wherever you're at the secondary in the Big Ten. That's why I worry about when it comes to Dwayne. That's why I don't believe he's as talented as Deshaun Singleton, because Deshaun was a 6'3", lengthy safety with really, really good speed, really good quickness. It wasn't out of this world. He wasn't a freak athlete, but it was really solid. And that's why I'm nervous about when it comes to Dwayne. But overall, I expect him to be a rock. I don't think he'll get 4 interceptions again, but somebody who's definitely not going to be a liability. I just don't know if he's that high upside safety that maybe some people were hoping for. And then you have the bench here. The next up in the secondary, all these guys are going to play a lot of snaps because we do rotate tremendously within this DB unit. Let's go corner, nickel, and safeties once again. At corner, you got Jeremiah Charles, who I think could be the first off the bench. Now, yes, some people will say he's going to start with Nebraska. At the end of the day, I love Jeremiah Charles from the standpoint where he's the fastest player on the team, long arms, great length. At night, when I go to bed, I rewatch clips in my head of his performance against UCLA in 2024. And I say to myself, there's just no way he could start on this football team. There's no way. And he's somebody where he could be a changed man. He could be a changed player, but you have to ease him into it, right? You can't just throw him out there in the fire against Michigan State because you could get burnt. You could lose that game because of him, and there's no going back. So Jeremiah, big year for him. This is it. Like, if Ash Williams wants to prove that he's a great developer, you make him into something special. Because you can. He has the upside to do so, but the film there and the technique and the man coverage, oh gosh, it's just not awesome. However, the corner who I believe is better right now, will be potentially starter as the season progresses, is former 5-star, one of the few 5-stars in this roster, Danny Odom, who was the number 1 corner recruit in America, top 20 nationally at 6'2", 180. With some players, if they got it or they don't got it. There's some things you can't teach. And at corner, there's a specific thing that you cannot teach at all, and that's instincts. You either got it or you don't got it. Like, there's some players who don't got it. I don't know if Victor Evans has this great ball instincts. Jeremiah does not have great ball instincts. Danny Odom has an uncanny ability. When the ball's in the air, he comes down with it and brings it back to the house. I believe he led Florida in interceptions last season. He's somebody who at PBU, he was so scrappy from a technical man coverage standpoint. He's second to none. He's already one of the best man coverage players in the team. There's just so much that should excite you around Danny Odom. The only thing that's a little bit concerning is, he's a true freshman. Sometimes true freshmen, they struggle at corner, particularly because you're throwing the fire. It's a big adjustment, but I feel some sort of way about it if he's coming in from Montana and played 2 stars. It's another thing playing in Florida when you're playing 4-star, 5-stars every single week. You're going to know it's being asked of you. So, Danny, it's going to be a little bit of a traditional phase, but as talented as quite literally any DB on this team, no question about it, I do believe will be in the mix to start. And nickel, you got Larry Tarver. We believe he's one of the best, pound-for-pound man coverage corners on the team, but he's had some injury issues for the Huskers. Again, really, only playing a couple games throughout his career, 1 tackle last season, but again, super speedy, former 4-star, coming out of Florida. It's a big year for him to finally prove his worth. You got Mario Buford at free safety. He's going to play a lot this year, one of the standouts in spring ball. He's just kind of hurt victim to a very, very tough room. He probably would start if it wasn't the way it was. But listen, Mario Buford, kind of a jack of all trades, can play every single spot, corner, nickel, free, strong. Doesn't really do anything really great. Once again, not super speedy, but very physical. Has a lot of experience. Again, he redshirted last year. People forget about that. But in his true freshman year for Nebraska, played a majority of the games. And then I'll give the nod at strong safety here within the second unit to Rex Guthrie, just because, he played a lot last year. Was it good? No, it was not good. But he is more of a proven commodity than Jason Shiggs or, Caleb Benning or, Justin Rat at that point in time. So 63 tackles. He needs to work on he needs to work on not missing tackles and his tackling angles, his coverage. But definitely somebody who coaching staff believes in, but an injury issue there that we need to watch out for. Rest of the players in the secondary here, again, you got Jason Shiggs, who's definitely in the mix. I believe he, again, I'll put him at, a 78 overall. It is a loaded safety room, and that's why I don't think he gets the nod immediately. But definitely somebody who could be in the mix as the team progresses coming in from Towson. You got Amari Sanders with great length. We thought he was going to be in the mix to start last year. Didn't play, but 6'3", great speed, very physical. Caleb Benning led the bowl game in tackles against Utah. Was he great? No, but definitely physical and developing at a high level. You got Bly Hill, who this is kind of it for his career along with Justin Ratt. They got to finally prove their worth at the bottom of the depth chart. Overall, with Nebraska's secondary to round out this defense, third in the Big Ten, according to multiple publications, according to Phil Steele, top 10 nationally, returning production only 67th, but so much talent, so much experience. Well, I shouldn't say so much experience, but so much talent. And you trust As Williams, trust Rob Orch, and that's why the rankings are what they are. And then looking at the entire Nebraska defense, pretty good. I expect this unit to barely inch out the offense as the best on this team. Now, again, you have a run stopping grade of an 82. Again, I expect to improve. Now, the defensive line scares me. I'm not going to lie with you. The defensive line, I truly believe, could be a liability on this team. No question about it. But when you look at the linebackers, you look at a DB room that can tackle at a very high level. That's why, and a defensive coordinator that knows how to stop the run gives me confidence. But more than anything, pass coverage, 90, expect to be one of the best in America again. Honestly, probably a little bit underselling it. Could be probably higher than a 90, but I do expect the secondary to be stout for the Huskers. And then also what really excites me about the defense, you have a secondary that's deep and a linebacker room that's deep. You feel comfortable with a lot of guys going out there. So if injuries were to hit, we're not screwed. At least not the linebackers, the secondary. The defense line, that's a different story. And then wrapping up the team before we get to superlatives, strengths and weaknesses, Big Ten power rankings, and so much more. Let's get to the special teams. I believe this is an upgrade for the Huskers. Now, it's an upgrade from a talent perspective. From a coaching perspective, that's a different story. But you lose Alvana, who really wasn't playing for us. You lose Kevin Gallick. You bring in Jack Wills. You have another development of Archie Wilson, another year of development with Kyle Kinnanen. From a talent perspective, it's not even close. It's an upgrade everywhere. Now, without Mike Eckler, a little bit different story, but that brings us to the talent. Here is our special teams unit. Here you got place kicker Kyle Kinnanen and Archie. You got our holder, long snapper, kickoff man, and our returners along with Brett Maher. Now going one by one here, again, Kyle Kinnanen averaged about 83% last year. Not bad. Again, not great, but not bad. Really, the only misses he had were over 40 yards. Hopefully, he's at the 90-plus club this year, but again, certainly somebody who was more of a rock on this team. I believe he was the best special teams player we had last year outside of Kent Williams. So Kyle Kinnanen, not worried about him all. Expecting him to progress this year to be one of the better kickers in the Big Ten. Archie Wilson, not great last year. He does earn himself a grade of an 80 just because he's as talented as any punter you're going to see. He can kick with both legs. He can kick it 1,000,000 yards. But I don't know if it was him just, transitioning to American football or him being a true freshman. But Archie statistically not great last year. Can only average about 40 yards per punt. One of the dead last in the Big Ten. Did not have a whole lot of punch side of 20. People say, well, that's because he didn't have a whole lot of room to punt. That's not true. Our offense really wasn't that good. Archie, what killed him was he had a lot of shanks that really, really hurt this team. Hopefully they go with Archie, but at the end of the day, man, somebody who certainly in his sophomore season for the Huskers, hopefully can break out with Brett Maher's leadership. You got Jack Wills coming in for Michigan State, long snapper, one of the best long snappers in the Big Ten. I want to never hear Jack Wills' name called, ever, because if I never hear his name called, he's doing a fine job. Camden Cook, our holder, he's a punter, not really going to punt for us. He's just going to hold. He does a fine job. Never really messed up holding the football outside one time versus USC. So he earns a grade of an 86. And then you go to our kickoff duties. You have our kickoff man, John Hull. He's not awesome. There were a lot of times last year where didn't get a whole lot of leg under it. A lot of big return. But hopefully John Hull, he does have a leg in him. But we got to see more consistently this year. A lot more touchbacks. And then you get to our return men. Isaiah Mozee at kick returner and Jacory Barney at punt returner. Starting off with Isaiah Mozee. Isaiah Mozee should be our lead kick returner just because he's a thicker built back, better vision. I know a lot of people are nervous about losing Kent Williams, and that's fine, right? Kent Williams was great last year, to be honest with you. Had, of course, big kickoff return against Northwestern, brought one back to the red zone against Maryland, but Isaiah Mozee's just as talented, four-star guy, a lot of experience returning kicks back to high school. I don't expect to be a downgrade. It's not going to be maybe a clear upgrade, but if anything, it's going to be very similar to what we had with Kent Williams. And there's going to be some plays with Isaiah Mozee where he brings it back maybe to the house. So excited to see what he can do. And then at punt return, you have Jacory Barney. Now, Jacory, you have seen pundits and multiple lists list him as, potentially being not only Big Ten All-American or All Big Ten when it comes to punt returning. You've seen him being All-American first team, right? Punt return. People were projecting that preseason that he's going to be potentially the best punt return in America. Now, I'm not there just yet, just because last year was kind of disappointing. Like, he had a lot of opportunities to break through. Like, with Jacory, he excites me because every single time he's back there, you just think, okay, maybe this is the time he's going to bring it to the house. But with Jacory, he is elusive. He's fast. He just cannot break tackles, and his vision needs a lot of work. And that's the bottom line. That's the bottom line of Jacory. If he can break tackles, if his vision can get better, if a wind does not break him down, right? If he can break shoestring tackles, yeah, Jacory's gonna be that guy. Yeah, especially with added weight. But it just comes down to some development. And also the guys ahead of him blocking. We need blocking. If you can't block a punt return, it doesn't matter how shifty your punt return is. He's not gonna go anywhere. And that's just the truth. And then as for Brett Maher, I mean, yeah, I'm not gonna lie with you. I'm nervous about getting rid of Mike Eckler and bringing in Brett Maher. Maher has no experience being a special teams coordinator. He's only been coaching for 3 years. At the end of the day, it just comes down to Brett Maher's energy, his creativity, and his ability to get these guys going on block punts, block kicks, and making game-changing plays through the return game. I think our kicking is going to be just fine. Our punting is going to be just fine. I'm not worried about that. I am worried about us making game-changing plays because that's what's going to set our special teams apart. Hopefully Brett Maher can do that, but that is something that is still up in the air. All right, that's Nebraska's entire team in detail, and now it's officially time for our team superlatives, our sleeper players, our freshman phenoms, our X factors, and our award winners. Let's begin with the sleeper players for the Huskers. 4 total, 2 on offense, 2 on defense. I'm going to give the nod first to 4-star wide receiver in his second season, Cortez Mills Jr. Of course, had a big year last year. I wouldn't say he's exceeded expectations, but you certainly saw the flashes. 150 receiving yards, 1 touchdown, earning him a rating of an 81. Now, the reason why I believe Cortez Mills is a sleeper is this, and the reason why he's going to break out, frankly, he has an ability that no other receiver on this roster has. His pure hands, the 50-50, the jump balls, the catch radius, the one-handed snacks, right? The OBJ ability. You can't teach that, right? Jacory does not have that. Kwazi does not have that. Nyziah, you love him to have that, but he doesn't have that just yet, right? Quinn maybe a little bit, but Cortez Mills, when it comes to his pure hands, the route running that's progressed, the fact that he is a 4-star blue chip recruit, you expect him to be receiver 4, if not receiver 5. If there's an injury that hits, he's going to be the first one up off the bench. This is the year that Cortez Mills really breaks out. Is he going to be a 1,000-yard receiver? No, but man, oh man, he's going to have a big year to the point where he's an easy starter for Nebraska entering 2027, and he's in the mix to be potentially one of the better in the Big Ten. Other sleeper is going to be quarterback TJ Lateef. Now, the reason why I tell you it's going to be TJ Lateef is this. He will start football games for Nebraska this year. Not week 1, maybe not week 2, maybe not week 5, but he will start a game with the injury situation. And if there's ever a benching. Now, TJ, I know some people feel some sort of way about him. At the end of the day, this man is a former 4-star, Elite 11 finalist, top 15 at his position. TJ Lateef has size, speed. All of his issues last year were fixable, and they are already fixed. The IQ is better. The playbook, he understands it like the back of his hands. He's audibling, right? He's becoming an offshore quarterback while also improving his pocket presence. The offense they're going to see with Anthony Clander this year better suits TJ anyway. So, TJ, I expect him to take a jump forward. He is a sleeper player because he just doesn't get enough credit. There could be a reality where Anthony gets banged up, TJ gets in the ball game. You could say, oh, maybe TJ provides something that Anthony doesn't because he has a more talented arm. So these are my 2 sleeper players on offense. For my sleeper players on defense, I'm going to give them the nod on the defense line, Tyson Terry. Now, there's no doubt in my mind the defense line's a big concern. No doubt. If Tyson Terry were to break out or Malcolm Simpson were to break out, it makes you feel a lot better. Now, Tyson, we heard a lot of good things in spring ball. Still far ways away, but he's in a 3 deep, man. If he can prove, his pass rush, if he can continue to put on size, yeah, another guy who could really shine for the Huskers this year. Larry Tarver is kind of one of those prototypical practice demons. You hear a lot of stuff about him, in practice every single week. Oh man, he looks good. Man covers, press covers. He made this huge play, but you never see it on Saturdays. With Larry Tarver, a full year of health, fully expect him to have a huge year for Nebraska, especially if injuries strike in the secondary. But those are sleeper players who definitely aren't going to start, but could as the season goes on. Next up, freshman phenoms, guys who are 18 years old, just show up on campus, who are going to be ideally day 1 contributors. We have 4 here. Jamal Rhule, I mean, that's about as easy as it gets, right? Jamal Rhule will be in the mix to start with how open with this running back room. I think there's a possibility he will. Again, my bet is that it will be Isaiah Mozee, but next one up is Jamal Rhule. I told you, it's not really a starting running back situation. You're trying to find 2 complementary backs, trying to find your speed and your size. So Jamal Rhule is not really competing with Isaiah Mozee. He's competing with Tyke Hayes, who can be that premier power back, who can be short yards, who can, truck somebody, but also has great quickness and have great IQ. Jamal has a leg up right now with him being here for spring ball. Let's hope he can do that, but no question about it, he's a freshman phenom. You have Luke Sorensen, who right now is tight end 2. I think could be tight end 1 by the end of the season because he can block just as well as Luke Lindenmeyer and can get more involved from a vertical standpoint, right? He's improving his hands, route running, has had a great offseason, put on even more weight, looks the part, right? Luke Sorensen, that was a real big hidden gem coming out of Anaheim. You have Dylan Berrymon, right? I put him on here because the defensive line is wide open. Yes. I mean, he just kind of came up a couple weeks ago. Yes. I mean, a little bit of a traditional period at 340 pounds. I mean, he is a big boy, maybe needs to shed some weight, but then with Dylan Berrymon, you got it or you don't got it. He got it. I mean, he's a phenomenal run stopper. And he's not going to be a guy who gets 20 snaps a game. He needs to improve his conditioning. But if you can put him in on first down, second down situations, draw him off the field, yeah, he's definitely going to command some double teams with his strength. I mean, he's already one of the strongest players in the team. Dylan Berrymon is definitely going to be a freshman phenom. And then you got Danny Yoda. I'd say outside Jamar, the easiest pick here. I don't expect him to be a day one starter, but he's the most talented freshman we have. He will be a long-term, stud for the Huskers for years to come. Number one corner in America. Just so technical, so precise. He could be a day one starter theoretically, but more likely than not, I think he'll earn that as the season progresses, and he'll prove his worth. Then you have our X Factor players on this team. These are the guys where if Nebraska has a good year, these are the guys who need to break out. And if these guys don't break out, it could get really ugly really quick. Number one, no question about it, the biggest X Factor every year is the quarterback. If Anthony Colandrea gets injured or he doesn't even have to get like a huge injury. If he just gets banged up, but he's playing through an injury, or let's say he gets benched, the whole season could come off the tracks instantly for the Huskers. Even if TJ's in there, this whole offense is revolving around Anthony. They're expecting Anthony to be available. And at times with Nebraska, we've not shown the ability to transition to backup quarterbacks very well. Usually we're not even prepared for the back quarterback in the ball game. So Anthony, this season is going to come down to him and his performance. I mean, he needs to have a big year. I mean, it's not even debatable, right? And Elijah Pritchett, I believe he's the biggest question mark on this offensive line. He is the most important offensive lineman, because he's a left tackle. He protects Anthony Colandrea's blind side. If Pritchett is great, this offensive line could easily be top 10 in America. I shouldn't say easily, but it could be. If Elijah Pritchett is a liability like what you saw last year, I mean, it gets ugly quick, and this is an offensive line that will not hold up against the best at all. We'll put it at that. Defensive line, I say Dawson Merritt is an X factor because of this. I expect a reality where he could be an edge rusher for the Huskers, where he could be an outside backer as well, but he could be a D end. In Dawson, I know what I'm getting with Manera. I know what I'm getting with Anthony Jones. I don't know what I'm getting from Dawson just yet. And if you add Dawson to this pass rush package with the Wineri, with the Jones, and he's phenomenal, he just gets 4 sacks this season. All asking 4 sacks, you feel so much better about the future of our pass rush. I mean, again, he has the swim move, he has the quickness, right? He has the release. You all dream of. It's just, man, can this dude stay healthy? I don't know. But big X factor for a pass rush. But with a pass rush that definitely lacks a lot. And then before we get to our award winners, X factor player Jameer Khan, if you have a secondary that comprises of Andrew Marshall, who he thinks can be stout, Dwayne McDougal, who thinks can be solid, Donovan Jones, a lot of experience, Danny Odom, and you have Jameer Khan, who breaks out like we think, it's going to be top 10 again for sure, even though we play a very tough schedule. And Jameer Khan, if he holds things down, really gets you excited about Addis Williams' unit there. Okay, that brings us to our award winners here for Nebraska. Here it is. And it's not maybe what some people are expecting. Now, let's start off with our MVP. Yes, I believe the MVP of this team this season will be Nyziah Hunter. I am officially predicting, as of today, as of this deep dive, save it for this, an 1,000-yard season for Nyziah Hunter will be the most consistent player offensively. When you need something to happen, you get to Nyziah Hunter. It won't be Jacory. It won't be Kwazi. Not to say those guys are going to be bad, but Nyziah Hunter, with the work that he's put in this offseason, with the spring that he had, again, he is somebody with phenomenal speed, but he is going to be a master of a couple traits. The route running will get better. The physicality is already good. It's going to get better. Nyziah Hunter is going to have that breakout year. 100% with what you saw last year, it's going to be even better. So when I go to this offense and I say, who is a proven commodity? I don't look at Colandrea, not a proven commodity. Running backs, nothing's proven there. Offensive line, I mean, there's some guy. I mean, Justin Evans could be, but we'll talk about him in a second. Defense line, nobody's going to get MVP there. Linebacker, it'll be tough. Secondary could be Andrew Marshall, but Nyziah is the one who I truly expect to break out, and he will get the MVP honors as the best player, at least from week to week on the season, who you at least see the highlight plays from, right? Who can elevate this entire squad. Offensive breakouts, kind of been hitting at it for a while. It's going to be Isaiah Mozee. Expect him to be the best running back when it's all said and done. He's the most versatile. He fits the Dana Holgorsen offense. I see no reason why Isaiah Mozee won't have the season that we expect as a former four-star, right? I believe, again, I bring up four stars all the time by saying this. I think four stars are so important because they mean you got talent. And he has as much talent as anybody in the running back room, but he has the quickness, he has the size. Somebody where if I'm going to say there's one running back who really, really proves he's Big Ten worthy, it's going to be Isaiah Mozee. That's the one I'm going to hitch my wagon to at the end of the day. Defensive breakout, I'm going to go Jacory Whittington here. I think he's the best defensive lineman on the team. He's twitchy, he's fast, and get to the quarterback. I am worried about his size. I am worried about his pass rush ability, but we need to break out on the defensive line. That's the one I'm going to really, really believe, because at the end of the day, his pit film at the end there, really good. Really good. And at the end of the day, the development he showed in spring ball, better than what you saw from Neri. I'm not hitching my wagon toward Lenhart. I'm not hitching my wagon toward Anthony Jones. Most proven commodity. Well, I should say it's the most proven commodity, but somebody who mixed the experience, the upside, and everything else that Jacory Whittington going to give him my defensive breakout honors. Unsung hero. Now, Justin Evans could be the MVP when it's all said and done, but he'll never be the MVP because nobody's ever going to give him enough credit because he's a center. But he's going to be the unsung hero. He will be a rock. I mean, you just know we are going to give Justin Evans. He's not going to be a liability ever. He might give up one sack this season at the very most. He's going to be the eyes of the offensive line, the quarterback of the offensive line, very important player. He's never going to get enough credit, but he will be a rock and an absolute stud for the Huskers within the trenches. And then Coach of the Year, I believe it will go to Jeepway. Now, I was between him, Rob Orch, and Addison Williams, to be completely honest with you. The reason why I'm not going to go Addison is because I do believe the secondary will take a tiny step back. It won't be a tremendous step back. I still think it'll be top 10 in America, but we play a tough schedule this year. And you lose here, right? Lose Sean Singleton. He didn't improve a whole lot. I mean, from at least experience, from a talent standpoint. So I'm not going to go Addison, but although I think the deep secondary should be just fine. Rob Orch, jury's out on the defensive line, so that's why I don't want to give to Rob Orch just yet. When I talk about a coach just doing his job, improving his unit, it's Jeepway. I fully expect this offensive line to break out. I'm worried about Pritchett, but other than that, I mean, you got the guards who I think are great. Evans, I think, is great. Babalade concerns me a little bit. Depth concerns me a little bit, but then I'm going to give credit. I'm going to give credit, and I'm going to believe in Jeepway with what we've seen this summer, and I believe he'll be the Husker Coach of the Year. Okay, we went over the staff, we went over the roster, we went over the superlatives. Now let's get to the outlook. Strengths and weaknesses of this team one by one. Now let's begin with the strengths. This is a quarterback room that certainly has depth, and you need depth because we know injuries are going to hit. We know unpredictability will hit. That's what I mean. That we've never had a quarterback room in 20 years, really, that has three guys who've started Power 4 games. That's impressive. Now, are all these guys, Peyton Manning over here? No. Okay. And I say this all the time. We have three good quarterbacks who can be elite. I don't know just yet. But at least we have three quarterbacks you feel comfortable starting games. You're not throwing a walk-on on the fire. That's number one. Number two, the receivers, I expect to be great this season. Again, at some point, something's going to happen. At some point, these guys are going to live up to their potential. And with Nyziah being the MVP, with Kwazi, who I believe could be the best receiver as well. You got Jacory, who's as talented as it gets. You have great depth there with Cortez Mills, who I believe is a sleeper. Yeah, receiver room, that's a strength. Secondary is a strength. The return top 5 unit. You have Danny. You have, again, Jameer Khan, spring ball MVP. Andrew Marshall could be the best in the secondary. Lockdown corner. A lot of experience there as well. Secondary, easy strength. Linebackers, easy strength. Has as much experience as anybody in America. Dexter, Owen Chambliss, Will Hawthorne, Vincent Shavers. I mean, Dawson Merritt's loaded. It's loaded at linebacker. And there are a lot of 4-stars who are butting like a Christian Jones, like a Pierce Mover, and Dylan Rogers. And then overall, the strength of this team, I mean, I'll just say this. For years, you've heard the narrative that Nebraska's super young. Like, we're just a year away from being an old team. We are an old team. This offensive line, old. This running back room, okay, it's not old, but okay, I should have brought the running backs. Okay, quarterback's old. Receivers old. Offensive line old. Linebackers old. Secondary old. This is an old team. The young guys, the young talent we've been waiting for to break out, they're finally entering their third and fourth season. This is a unit that's old, that's experienced, and hopefully shows up on Saturdays because they're 22, 21, 22 years old. As for the weaknesses, and these are the things that I truly believe will hold Nebraska back this season. Running backs. Again, it's not about who's good. It's not about who's the best. Who can be elite? I'm not asking you to replace Emmett Johnson. Nobody's going to replace Emmett Johnson. But who can be the best of the bunch? Who can show up consistently on Saturdays and get us a $150? Who can get us 100 yards? Who can get us 5 yards of carry? That's what we want. Okay, 100 yards and a touchdown. Who can do that? I don't know if there's a single running back who can do that. Isaiah, I think, is the best, but I still have concerns about that, right? Like, it's questionable, right? Defensive line, this is the biggest concern on the team. It's not close. If the season goes poorly for Nebraska, it's because the defensive line does not make any improvement. This is a unit. There is only one unit on this team that I think lacks true talent, and it's the defensive line. There are 4-stars in the defensive line, but there's no experience for the most part. There's no good experience, and you lack a lot of talent, at least in the interior. You lack a lot of depth at edge rusher. There's no depth at edge rusher. So this is a defensive line that really has proven not to get to the quarterback. I expect to take a step forward, but it's not about taking one step forward. It's about taking 5 steps forward. We cannot go from the worst defensive line in the history of the program to just 1 step forward because it's still a below average defensive line. We can't even take 5 steps forward. We need to take 10 steps forward with this defensive line. That's a big ask, and I just don't know if we have the horses to do it in year one, at least year one of Corey Brown and Roy Manning. So absolutely defensive line pass rush. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. That's a huge issue. Staff, I put as a weakness. Why do I put it as a weakness? Well, it goes back to what we said about Matt Rhule. This season will be determined based on Jimmy Joe's, but it comes down to our game playing and our execution mid-game as well. Our adjustments, and it'll come down to, can Matt Rhule actually win ranked ball games against the best? I don't know. And his track record says he can't. Dana Holgorsen, his track record recently says he's washed, and the best days are behind him, right? This is a positional coaching staff that still has some holes with Glenn Thomas, with Marcus Satterfield, with Ed Foley involved, with Snow involved. Like, this is a staff that is better. Don't get me wrong. The staff is better, but is it top 20 in America? I would not say so at all. I would not say so at all. And then I'd say weakness is top end talent. Now, don't be wrong. Our talent is good. Our talent is really, really good. I just say our talent maybe is not as good as what people expect in year 4. Like the fact that we only have, well, we have a handful of 90-plus players on our team, according to me. What, I have 2. I had Owen Chambliss, Andrew Marshall. We had Justin Evans and Isaiah Hunter. The fact that we only have 4 90-plus players on the team, like, yeah, I mean, the top end talent is good, but it's still a far ways away from being, consistently like maybe a top 15 team in America. So I wouldn't say there's a whole big weakness. It's better than the majority of teams will play this year, but you'd wish a little bit better in year 4. As for the X factors, this needs to go well for the Huskers. Again, Anthony Colandrea, X factor, non-negotiable. If he gets injured or is benched or anything worse than that, this season will go to hell in a handbasket. We cannot have Anthony Colandrea perform poorly, and he needs to get rid of the turnovers. Game playing adjustments, as we talked about, huge X factor. If we cannot game play, we cannot adjust, we're not going to win too many Big Ten ball games. Run game, I'm nervous about it. I'm not worried about Anthony Colandrea. I'm nervous about having a consistent running back, and I'm worried about this offensive line from a run blocking standpoint. But that's an X factor because they can turn it around. And if the run game can be solid, along with what I believe to be an elite passing attack, yeah, you get excited around Dana Holgorsen entering this season. And then big X factor is this: turnovers. I'm not worried about turnovers when it comes to the running backs, at least fumbling it, but I'm worried about, first off, our quarterback Anthony Colandrea turned the ball over, and I'm worried about our defense forcing turnovers. We had a defense last year that could not force turnovers to save our lives. That's got to change. The way you win big ball games, the way you win ranked games, you force turnovers, you make game-changing plays. And whenever we can do that, we can minimize our turnovers and get turnovers on defense. That's going to put us in a big situation. If we can force turnovers at a high level, we'll definitely be in the mix to win 9, 10 games and shock a lot of people. Okay, that brings us to our Big Ten power rankings entering the season. Now, I believe Nebraska is right now the 9th best team in the conference, the premier Bull squad. Now, again, you got the championship contenders, kind of non-debatable there. You got the playoff contenders. I give Penn State the nod as a playoff contender, not because I think they're on the same playing field as Michigan or USC, but because they have the easiest schedule in the Big Ten. It's going to be pretty hard for them not to win at least 9 games. Then you have the dark horses. Iowa, always a dark horse. I am going to go UCLA above Nebraska. UCLA, funny enough, has comparable talent to us, and you saw it last year when we played them. You saw them when they beat us 2 years ago, and they have, you can very well argue, better coaching than Bob Chesney. And that's where I'm going to go Nebraska. Nebraska at 9. I am not too high on Washington, funny enough. They have a lot of issues, I believe. I'm not super high on Jedd Fisch. I'm not saying they're a terrible team, but some people say they're dark horse. I'm not there just yet. I put them at 10. Minnesota, pretty easy 11. Thinking Darius Taylor. They have, again, a decent quarterback in Drake Lindsey, decent talent on the defensive line, but it's all decent with Minnesota. They've been pretty stagnant these past couple years. Pretty easy 11. Rutgers has talent, but lacks some talent on the trenches. Then you got the bubble teams. The bubble teams are the teams who I believe will be in the mix to maybe make a bowl if things go right, but there will be around 5-6 games. Illinois lost a lot of talent. I mean, they lost everything. This is an Illinois team I am selling. I mean, I don't expect them to be anything close to last year. Wisconsin, you have an easy schedule, but is it enough? We'll see. Northwestern lacks talent. Michigan State, year 1 rebuild. Again, they could make a bowl game. Theoretically, it's going to be very tough with Pat Fitzgerald. And then the rebuilders, Maryland, they got Malik Washington, they got some dudes, but listen, man, I mean, it's a tough schedule for them per usual. They crumble. I truly believe they have the worst coach in power football, Mike Locksley. I don't see any more than 5 wins. And then you got Purdue pretty easily, number 18. That needs no explanation. That brings us to the final thing before we get to the truth behind the matter, the 2026 outlook here for Nebraska. Now, of course, you see the schedule in detail for the Huskers. You have Ohio, Bowling Green, North Dakota, one of the easiest non-conference schedules in the history of the program. And you play Michigan State, Maryland, Indiana, Oregon, tough little stretch there. Washington, Illinois, Rutgers, Ohio State, and end off the season, of course, versus the Iowa Hawkeyes. Now, over under right now, according to Vegas, is 6.5. It started off at 5.5, but I'm not gonna lie with you guys. It's disappointing to see 6.5 in year 4. It's been 6.5 forever. Like with Scott Frost every year, it was 6.5. Scott Frost never had 5.5. It was 6.5 every year with Scott Frost. It was what was it? It was 7.5 last year for us. So it actually went down this year. So if Scott Frost always at 6.5 and we have 6.5, it kind of just tells you what you need to know. Like how much progress has really been made if Vegas still thinks we're barely a bowl team. Big Ten title odds, not awesome. National championship odds, not awesome. But you look at the ceiling of this team. This is where it gets a little bit controversial. I believe the true ceiling of this team, best case scenario, is 9-3. 9-3. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of a disclaimer. I believe there is a very, very real possibility Nebraska wins one of the big three, Indiana, Oregon, Ohio State. I am not of the belief that it is so impossible to beat one of those three. There is a possibility it could be Indiana. I think we could even beat Ohio State, maybe, theoretically. It's not a 0% chance. But the reason why I tell you the ceiling is 9-3 this season is because, first off, we have not shown the ability to compete in November. I am worried about the Iowa games to death. And also, there's just going to be a game where the Huskers inevitably drop. I mean, there's a game we probably shouldn't lose that we'll lose. And I'm going to predict that until proven otherwise. Like, you could argue 10-2 is the ceiling, but that requires Nebraska to be perfect against Illinois, Washington, Illinois, although I think they're going to regress. That's still a Friday night game at Champaign. Iowa, Rutgers on the road, East Coast, getting out of Michigan State clean and beating Indiana. Like, it's just, it seems too good to be true. So 9-3, I think, is the absolute ceiling if we peak. Floor is 5-7. I'm not of the belief the floor is 3-9. Not of the belief that Nebraska might not win a single conference game. But yes, the floor for Nebraska is a missed bowl game. It is, because I'll tell you the worst case scenario right now in my mind. You win the first 3, okay, it's going to happen. But the Michigan State game, if you lose Michigan State, the season gets out of hand quickly. Maryland, I mean, you could pretty easily lose that Maryland game with the talent they have. Maryland almost beat us last year. Although I don't think Maryland's going to be good, but they have talent, okay? You could lose the Maryland game at that. And then you lose Indiana, Oregon, and then you get on a downward spiral. At that point, there's no saving the season. Even if you do lose to Michigan State and you beat Maryland, you still lose to Indiana, lose to Oregon, lose to Washington, lose to Illinois. You maybe beat Rutgers, Iowa State, and Iowa. That's L. Like 5-7. I can see that. Now, do I think it's going to happen? Probably not. But that's if everything goes wrong. And if everything would go wrong, it looks like this. It looks like Nebraska not being able to compete in one-score games. It looks like a offensive line that's maybe not as good as what we think it's going to be. It looks like a defensive line that's once again one of the worst in the history of the program. It looks like Anthony Colandrea getting benched or injured. It looks like a running back room that's a liability. It looks at maybe it looks like a defensive coordinator and Rob Bortz who's maybe a little bit over his head. It's possible. Am I betting on it? Maybe not. But that's the floor, right? Nothing less, nothing more. 5-7 is the floor with 9-3 as the ceiling. Overall, when you look at the advanced stats and the projection, you run this through, the advanced stats say 6.65 victories, which is right around the Vegas win total. So the Vegas is pretty accurate there. Yeah, I mean, it's tough, right? To say whether you're going to go over or under. Nebraska every single year in the past 10 years has actually went under on their projected win total. So if you're checking out trends, you're probably thinking Nebraska will win 6 games this year, but we'll see. I will say this. It is the most talented roster we've seen in years. It is a coaching staff that, while it has some issues, but one of the better we've seen in years, right? It's a schedule that maybe it's not as hard, so people give it credit for it. Very, very possible Nebraska could break out. So again, I want to make this very clear. I am not releasing my schedule prediction just yet. My schedule prediction comes out next. It comes out next Saturday. So this time on August 1st at 9 o'clock Central, my record prediction will be out. But listen, the truth behind the matter. Let's bring it in. Let's bring it in. If you made it here, here's the truth behind the matter, right? The season, what you need to know. Will this be the year for Nebraska? This is a make it or break a year. Not going to BS it. Not going to take that way. It is a make it or break a year. Not because Matt Rhule could be fired, but because if it does not work out this year, if Nebraska does not break out this year, it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen because, yes, you're bringing a good recruiting class, but if you win 7 games this year, your recruiting is not going to get any better. Your transport class is not going to get any better. The fan base will not believe. The boosters will not believe. Money will be gone from the program. It's the same way that Scott Frost year 4 was killer for him because even though he came back, it was over. This is a massive, massive year for Nebraska. Now, there are a million reasons to be optimistic in my mind, okay? The offensive line is a reason to be optimistic. The staff is a reason to be optimistic because you have upgraded with Jeepway. You have Addison coming back. You have Corey Brown. You have Rob Orge. That should excite you. The quarterback play with Colandrea, while I am nervous about it, with his electrifying nature, if he hits, if he's on point, that excites you with the way this offense looks. The linebacker play and the secondary play, that's proven. That's a proven commodity. That should excite you with this defense with Rob Orge. I also am a believer of this. The schedule is not as hard as what some people say. Some people say, oh, the schedule is impossible for the Huskers to break out. That's not true. That's not true. Am I saying the schedule is really easy? No. But it's not top 15 in America in the hard schedule standpoint. You have winnable games here. You have winnable games. Easiest non-conference history program. Michigan State is winnable. Maryland is winnable. Okay, Rutgers is winnable. Super winnable. You have Illinois, who were a better team than, with the way they lost all their talent. Washington home, you should win that game theoretically. Okay, so that's 8 games right there where Nebraska could be the favorites in. And Iowa, we could beat Iowa. We never beat Iowa, but we can beat Iowa. Okay, and then you got 3 that are going to be tough: Indiana, Ohio State, but Oregon. I mean, if you catch one of those guys on a tough day and you're playing great football, we've seen Nebraska in the past do that. It's been a while, but we've seen Nebraska in the past win those type of big time ball games. It's possible. This is college football. Anything happens. I know it has happened in Nebraska a while, but it can happen any given Saturday, as they say. So those are the reasons to be optimistic, but it's going to come down to these couple things here for Nebraska. These are the X factors. Defensive line, I'm scared to death. This defensive line, I truly believe, could be poor again. You have a big game problem. We need to win a big game this year for Nebraska. And I'm not talking like Illinois. I'm not talking Washington. You need to win a respectable big game, whether it's Iowa, Indiana, Ohio State. Win something you can hang your hat on. We need this season to progress throughout the year. Okay, meaning I want a better Nebraska football team against Iowa than YC versus Ohio. Every year we get worse throughout the year. We need to get better. We need to peak when we get to November, we get to the bowl game. We need a running back core that, poses a little bit of fear in people, that gets better as well, that's deep, that has talent, that shows up and proves what people want. But at the end of the day, and this is where we come down to all of it, it comes down to Matt Rhule. It comes down to Matt Rhule. Can Matt Rhule prove the doubters wrong? That he can win ranked games, he can win big games, he can make adjustments, he can develop, he can hire a good staff. Can Matt Rhule prove to the fan base that he is more than an average coach? Because that is what I am tired of having. I'm tired of saying, oh, well, 7 wins is good enough, 6 wins is good enough. Nebraska fans will want 9, they'll want 10. And if we win 7 games this year, my worry is that we're just going to be trapped in 7 wins forever. Because when you get trapped in the 7 wins, you're stuck there. Minnesota's stuck there. And I don't want to get stuck in 7 wins. It's not bad. It's better than what we were previously, but that's purgatory. We want to be in competition for the playoffs. I mean, we are a big enough brand to do that. At the end of the day with Matt Rhule, this is the expectation for the season. It needs to be 9 wins. It needs to be 9. Not 8. Because 8 is a small step forward. I don't care about the schedule. The schedule is not as hard as what people give credit for. 9-4 is a small step forward. That's not good enough in year 4. 7-5 is stagnation. You've made no progress with 7 wins. 6 wins is regression, and 5 wins is an embarrassment, or anything less is terrible. Now, if you, Matt Rhule, want to prove to the fan base you are the guy, you are worthy of your contract, 9 wins. It's possible. It's doable. It's the ceiling. Well, let's hit the ceiling. We have the talent to do it. Is the talent perfect? No. Is the roster perfect? No. Is the coaching staff perfect? No. It does not matter. If we have a head coach in Matt Rhule who can execute when it matters the most, when the lights are the most bright, we're going to be in a really good spot this year. I can sit here and talk about the talent, I can sit here and talk about the offense coordinator. The ball is in Matt Rhule's court, but I just know one thing. It's going to be an absolutely fun, massive year for Nebraska, one of the most important seasons that hits the program, and I'm excited to get things started with you guys. So, oh my goodness, what a deep dive, jam-packed. If you made this far, if you watched the whole thing, I owe you something. I want to end by saying this. I appreciate all the support you guys have shown me this offseason, and we're posting twice a day, 3 times a day. It's unreal. The family we have here is unreal, and I just hope that you guys stick with me during the season. Stick with me every single Saturday, because it's going to be even better, man. But I'm excited for this year. I'm nervous, no question. I'm nervous. I'm absolutely nervous. I will not lie to you. I am nervous because I understand the stakes behind this year, but at the end of the day, I have belief in this talent. I believe in the O-line. I believe in Colandrea. I believe in Rob Orge, the secondary, the linebackers. You know what? Let's drink some Kool-Aid for crying out loud. Let's drink some Kool-Aid. This is the year. Come on. I'm not the playoff year. Maybe not. Maybe not the national championship year. But this is the year Nebraska shows positive momentum that's real. That's real, right? Not 7 wins, not 8 wins. Let's shoot for the stars. And I'm not hoping for anything less. All right, guys. Appreciate y'all. Deep dive 2026. Let me know your thoughts down below about everything. Let me know what you think. Make sure to do. Hit that like button, subscribe. As always, folks, don't forget, go back to Rhule, and I'll see you in the next one.